Ari and James, Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
It is a stand-on business, wheels off Wednesday here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Welcome in. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We have Anthony Smith, our video producer for Big 12 Studios behind the camera. And we have Taman Turner, our audio producer and engineer for TuneIn. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. Here in about 15 minutes, this might be one of my favorite power rankings that we've ever done. The top five, it's a big day. The top 5 1-2 punches in the Big 12, quarterback and running back. How did you put your list together? Because I think if we were just looking at the top 2 quarterback and running backs, that might be a different list than 1-2 punches in terms of being dual threat. Like I'm thinking RPOs, zone reads. So how did you come up with your 5?
Wow, you put a lot more thought into it than I did, I guess.
So you just took the best 2?
The best 2, yeah. Although, I mean, I think that's also true. Like, I mean, let's start with Utah, right? Is Devin Dampier one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league? Well, I guess we'll find out as well as we power rank the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. But with Wayshawn Parker and that dynamic, with that number 2 rushing attack last season in college football, number 1 in the Big 12, like that has to count for something. It has to weight heavier than just the individual talent or numbers in either of them. So yeah, I mean, I think you've got to factor in like how explosive is is their game together, and yeah, I think the multifaceted are part of it too, right? Not just the zone read, Devin Dampier stuff, but how effective is the running back out of the backfield and catching passes too.
It's another great point. Like Drew Mestmaker and Caleb Hawkins, their 1-2 punch looks very different than Bear Bachmeier and L.J. Martin or Avery Johnson and Joe Jackson. So that'll be a fun list as we power rank the top 5 1-2 punches, quarterback and running back in the Big 12. Are you aware that you don't have headphones on?
Yeah, I feel naked.
Where are your headphones?
I think they're in that chair, and I realized a little bit too late. I could have gotten up, but I don't think we're listening to any audio in this segment, so I really don't need it. I was actually trying to figure out how long it would take you to figure out that I did not have headphones on right now.
0.7 seconds. Noticed right away.
Yeah. As soon as the show started, I was like, oh, where are my headphones? I guess we're going. Let's go.
Clock's ticking. We're going.
We're going.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. You got to improvise, I'm a big improviser.
That's it. That's what I think of when I think of you. Very good on the fly. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. No, I'm here for it. Thought of you yesterday, by the way.
Aw.
I do every day. You guys think we're just here for 3 hours? No, it's a lifestyle. Radio is life. I got my oil changed yesterday.
Okay. Are you a whatever oil change operation is down the street for me kind of guy, or I've got to go to the dealership kind of guy?
Oh, dealership. No, I'm mom and pop. We mom and pop. And there's probably 4 within a 1-mile radius of my house. So there's plenty of options. But I get my oil changed, and
is this one where you stay in the car during the oil change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did not like and I'll never do again.
Yeah.
It says take 5. It's not 5.
Yeah.
I think take 5. I think 5 minutes. I was there over an hour.
Yeah. They're not a sponsor of the show yet, but the reason I go to a dealership now to get my oil changed is because of a couple of bad experiences with that group in particular, where things were left unchanged.
Okay.
Things were left out. Things that I can't even remember, but like a cap was left off and it was drained. Yeah, so I don't mess with any of those places anymore.
So you're dealership only?
Dealership only.
Okay, that's dedication. I mean, that takes a lot of dedication.
Well, I mean, you go to a place that messes up twice, kind of, all right, yeah,
go back.
Probably. You might be asking, why'd you go back a second time? Well, I thought the first time was a fluke.
No, they Greg Oster tagged you. You never go back. So anyways, I'm sitting in my car. They go to air up the tires. They asked me, true story, sir, do you do any street racing in this vehicle?
Well, I mean, it is. Did you start off your answer with, well, I mean, it is.
They recognized
sports sedan.
They recognized the sports sedan tires.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I just sat there like,
do I street race?
I know it's a street racing vehicle. It has performance vehicle written all over it. There was a man who stopped me at a gas station and wanted to see inside my vehicle. He was not going to mug me or steal my car. He just wanted a tour. Yes, it is capable of street racing. Major street cred getting my oil changed.
What was the reason or the rationale for the question?
They were just airing up my tires.
Oh.
Apparently, if you're street racing, there's a different PSI. Like they they inflate them to a certain level.
What kind of clientele is going into this place that they're like, it's just part of the conversation to ask? Sir, do you street race? Like, I don't know, are you a police officer? Are you wire? Are you wearing a wire right now?
I think I was giving off major like Vin Diesel vibes.
Yeah, that had to be it.
And they thought, okay, this guy, he races this car. I'm going to ask him if he's a street racer. This is clearly a performance vehicle.
Yeah.
But that was the highlight of my day.
Yeah, so you just gave him a quick, like, no, not anymore. I would have done a not anymore.
Like, I thought about it, but no, back in the day, no, I'm not anymore. I'm retired. I'm retired from street racing.
Undefeated.
Like,
undisputed champion.
I know there's
710-1.
Like, there's mulch remnants in the trunk and a couple of car seats in the back, so my street racing days are over, but I appreciate the question.
Did you tip?
I spoke the language. No, I didn't tip. It was $1 billion. You supposed to tip at those races?
No, I don't know if they were like trying to grease you up to get like, oh, I guess I'll give you a few extra bucks.
I didn't see a tip notification on the iPad.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't one of those like you go to a restaurant or you order at the counter and they ask you if you want a tip and you're right there at the counter. You can see everything they're doing and it's like, what's the justification for the tip? But it's on my screen and you're looking at me and I know you can see what I'm about to do on this screen. That's where I crumble.
Yeah.
Crumble under the pressure.
Oh, so the options here are 20, 25, or 30% when you've already jacked up the prices for your restaurant because, you know, food's more expensive and my dish had less food in it. Yeah, so I'm paying more for less and you're asking me to tip 30% when the service wasn't even that good?
I liked it. There it is. And that's on top of, all right, this is a major get off my lawn moment for us, but let's embrace it. Price increases over the last 5 years. Groceries up 26%. Health insurance 27%. Shelter, I'm assuming that just means our homes, 29%. Restaurants, 30%. 30% price increases over the last 5 years. A dozen eggs up 39%.
I think I want to go viral on X. And I'm just going to do that, but just make up percentages because, and I'm not saying that's the case here. Right. I'm just simply saying, like, you could tell me, like, restaurant prices are up 150%, like, the last 5 years. I'll be like, I believe it. I believe it. You can tell me anything on price increases, and I would believe it.
Fuel's up 63%. Transportation's up 43%. How those things aren't more similar, I don't understand. Maybe it's because I spent $300 getting an oil change yesterday.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot going on. We did a coolant flush. We had a lot of things going on.
A lot of flushing. Got to flush.
Yeah, I mean, that vehicle's going to run until the end of time.
Yeah.
Because I'm spending $300 every time I take it in for an oil change. And they had me hook, line, and sinker. I knew I was getting got in the moment. But I had no defense. I didn't know what they were talking about. I was like, yeah, engine overheating, that would be bad. Sure.
You didn't Claude it? You didn't get into Claude and be like, Claude, they're telling me this. Is this true?
I'm in the vehicle. The pressure was on. They're like leaned into your car, like they're sticking their head through your window. It's very, very uncomfortable. Never again.
It's like an ostrich in a drive-up zoo. Like their head is going fully in. It's like, how did you get in here? Sir, I didn't invite you in my car.
Never again. At one point, they were sitting in my passenger seat. I was in the driver's seat. The guy had he'd accidentally hit the recline on the seat adjuster.
Oh.
So it was like all the way back, and he's just chilling over there looking at some stuff. It was a thing. It was a ride that I did not expect.
Nothing makes me feel dumber than going to any kind of mechanic in any situation, and then like the one where you're not sitting in your car, like if you go get tires, and you're kind of like looking back there, like have they brought my car back? And you're looking like you know what they're doing. Like, oh, yeah, I see that. They got the jack on it now. Perfect. Like you're looking through the window. Like, what are they doing now? Like as if I can tell what they're doing. As if I have any sense of what's happening.
It's all about body language.
All about body and confidence.
Hands on hips, stand legs partly spread, about shoulder width, power pose.
maybe a little bit more than shoulder width.
And you don't have to say a word. Just stand there, power pose, piercing those eyes into the window. They know that you know your stuff.
And sometimes you kind of walk with confidence. Maybe get up and pretend like you're on your phone, or even be on your phone. Who knows?
Take a call.
Super important.
I'm busy. We need
Pacing.
to hurry this. We need to hurry this operation up.
You told me. I'll tell you, nobody lies more than the mechanic, and that's only about the time. I mean, I'm not gonna make it just a broad proclamation about all mechanics because they do amazing work, but like on the timeline.
Oh,
that's the one that gets me. Yeah, it'll take about 45 minutes. Cool, awesome. 2 hours later, it's like, what happened to the 45-minute quote I got? And it's like, just tell me it's going to be 2 hours. Like you're not going to hurt my. Like I'm more upset when you tell me it's 45 minutes and it takes 2 hours than the opposite. If you tell me it's 2 hours, all right, cool. Then it comes in an hour and a half. Oh, look at that. 2 hours, schmoo hours. It's all about messaging.
well, and because there's always, you have the option. You can drop your vehicle off and have somebody come and pick you up, or you can just sit there and wait.
Right.
And it's always right on the cut line. If it's an hour, I'll sit there and wait. But if it's just past, yeah, maybe I should have somebody pick me up. But I don't think they want you to have somebody pick you up. I think they want you there.
They do.
So that they can have easier access to upsell you. So they always tell you right on that cut line. It's just short enough for you to stay and sit in our lobby.
Well, not only the access to you to upcharge you, but also because they want you out. So, like, the quicker you get your car and leave, the quicker they can replace it. Whereas
That's it.
you come pick it up, it's like, well, you got to pick it up now. Well, we close at 5, but you better, you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, I'd pick it up before 5. Well, we close at 8, but, yeah, let's get this thing going. We don't have parking space at our lot here for you.
So true. One of the worst mistakes I ever made was early on in my marriage. Current wife.
I was going to say,
This one.
Which one?
Newest one.
Which one of the 4 or 5?
We got in an argument. So we were having a little tiff. I thought it would be best if we parted ways to cool off. So I said, I need to get my oil changed. I'm going to go do that. So I left the house to get my oil changed. I thought I'd be gone a half hour.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 45 minutes.
Nope.
I sat there for almost 3 hours. So she had 3 hours to pull receipts. She had 3 hours to build up her side of the argument.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just sitting there in panic mode the whole time like, this is taking way too long. This is not going to be good. I'm going to get back home, and a tornado is hitting me the second I walk in the door. And I got served.
I can tell you with pretty high level of confidence that it will never take 45 minutes.
And it did not. It did not. That's a core memory. Like, I didn't have a fighting chance in that argument.
Yeah, and you
I've
were
been gone for 2 hours. She's been just stewing. All it's building.
At that
she was
point-
mad to begin with that I stepped away.
At that point, you should have just gone to the strip club straight from the oil change. Like, at that point,
Like, yep, this is it.
cut your losses.
Not coming back from this.
Where were you, honey? I was at the strip club. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be, just hit her with a knuckleball. And then it's like, good luck to build
now
your
it's
case
like-
against that.
Right, exactly. Now it's like, forget about every argument you just had. Now come after me with this.
Man, that's a move.
That's the
a
whole,
move.
like, my head hurts. Well, if I punch you in the leg, now your leg's going to hurt, huh?
There it is. That's why you're undefeated in arguments.
Chess,
That's
not
it.
checkers.
All right,
Checkmate.
Taman, great find on the Big 12 Barstool all-out war that has been waged among Big 12 schools, and it's a very important topic. Do we like or do we not like, and who has the best and who has the worst all-black alternate uniform set in college football? Because these fan bases are getting after it. I think Cincinnati started the whole thing.
Cincinnati started it, and then Oklahoma State responded.
So it starts with Ohio State. So Ohio State releases...
It starts with a school that doesn't have black as part of their actual color palette.
Correct. And Ohio State made this announcement that they were coming out with an alternate black uniform. And so that's when Cincinnati's like, please, if anybody's going to wear black in the state of Ohio, it's Cincinnati. And then that then became an all-out war within the Big 12, which... I guess if you asked me, I would have considered the fact that, I think every single Big 12 school has some sort of black alternate.
They don't.
But pretty much. I mean,
Pretty much.
K-State may be the only one that does it at this point. Kansas now has a black alternate uniform. They're pretty sick. You know, obviously Iowa State, it feels like under Matt Campbell, their primary colors were black and white. I wonder if that changes under Jimmy Rogers. I'm sure Iowa State fans hope so. But, like, Oklahoma State, I mean, obviously Texas, the colors, the teams that have black in their colors, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, those make sense. But, yeah, I mean, Utah, I guess Arizona doesn't. I'm trying to think now through it.
There's two schools.
The Wildcats.
Two schools that don't have black uniforms.
The Wildcats.
Arizona and Kansas State. The Wildcats. For Arizona, and I love that both don't do it. For Arizona, their colors are red, navy, and white. They have like a really deep navy alternate that looks really good on television under the lights at night. And that's originally why a lot of schools started doing this, is because black really pops on television late at night under stadium lights. Baylor, TCU, back in like the 2010s, right? Kansas State, K-State hasn't changed their uniforms since the 80s when Bill Snyder got hired. And it used to be K-State went through this period where everybody was upgrading their uniforms and coming out with all these alternates, and you had the Oregon era, and Kansas State was like very much behind and kind of considered dorky. But now K-State's been rocking the same set for so long, it's evolved into this really iconic, simple, almost like an Alabama, Penn State, not quite to that degree.
Sure.
But they at Big 12 Media Days, they did a poll among the players that were there who has the best uniforms in the Big 12. And, like, K-State cracked the top 3, and I was stunned by that.
Because they're very basic. No, and they're purple, which I can't imagine that's a color that stands out. Yeah, I mean, look, you know, it's the Yankees, right? And I'm not comparing Kansas State to the Yankees. I'm simply saying, like, when you've got sort of an iconic look, you don't want to change it.
Right.
I think of the Chicago Bears. That's a team that has sort of had the same uniforms without much of a change, you know, forever. And look, I mean, if you're a team like Kansas, you kind of need that stuff where you don't have a lot of history with your program. And I mean, UCF has a little bit of history, but same kind of thing. I just don't like – it's funny because it feels high school when you wear the same jersey and pants combination. So it's just – I don't know. It's just a bizarre look to me to go with the same chromatic. What's it called?
Monochromatic.
Thank you. Monochromatic look. One color.
Simple look.
Yeah.
I love all the black sets in the Big 12. Probably my least favorite would be Iowa State because they just go like black and white, and it doesn't tie to their school colors in any way. But everybody else, like I think Baylor's black set is sweet. TCU, Oklahoma State, it's obviously part of their colors. Even BYU, because like that black and royal blue pops really nice. Taman, question.
Yo,
You're a lifelong Cowboys fan.
I am.
Do you know the story about Kansas State and the Dallas Cowboys and the uniforms, and do you see any parallels between the two?
No, I never thought about it, honestly.
You've heard this story 1,000 times, but I'll share. Bill Snyder wanted K-State to be easily identified on television. So Bill Snyder designed K-State's football uniforms. They're exactly the same as the Dallas Cowboys because everybody knew what the Cowboys looked like. That's why they have the silver pants. That's why they have the same stripes. Even the helmet's the same, just the logo's different. And the colors are different. But everything else is exactly the same as the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, you know what's interesting is the Cowboys don't even actually wear silver pants.
Right, they're like a bluish tint.
Like a seafoam blue. And do you know why that is?
I know there's a story. Tell me.
Well, I mean, back in the day, when the Cowboys were like the one team on television consistently, the way that the TV cameras, they wanted the pants to look silver on TV. So that was the color they had to get in order to make it look silver on TV because silver didn't look silver. It looked white. Mm-hmm. So basically, and they still wear the same like non-silver seafoam blue pants.
And I love it.
But it was only because they wanted to look silver on television.
That's crazy. And it worked, and it works now. Good stuff.
I think they should go with real silver, but that's just me.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I love the history. I love the nostalgia.
That's true. I mean, the story and the history is really cool. I just remember like watching the Cowboys when I started doing their pre and post game show and being like, why are they like bluish?
Yeah. Because now, I mean, TV cameras pick up everything.
Yeah,
they
right.
clearly look more and more blue every year.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next, power rankings. We are ranking the top 5 1-2 punches in the Big 12 quarterbacks and running backs. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8. Tyson. He found Tyson. Levitt throws a laser. It's caught. It's Tyson. It's touchdown. Still play fake. Going from the Tyson to target. Fantastic catch for two. The best in college football. Gets the night started in Tempe.
This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We will be joined in studio. I don't think it's March 20th. I'm going to say May 20th, here in about a week, by the commissioner, Brett Yormark. He's going to be in studio with us to break down this deal with Redbird, all the exciting things happening in the Big 12 behind the scenes. The NBA draft will be inching closer to that. So we've got the commish here in about a week. You could also catch us on the new Big 12 app, the brand new Big 12 app featuring Big 12 radio, breaking news, scores, schedules, and you can find us right there on the new Big 12 Conference app. Power rankings. We do it each and every Wednesday. What do we say about power rankings?
What do we say about power rankings, James?
You know I don't have it memorized.
Well, I mean, it's a power ranking world, right? We
It's not
live
good
in a
enough.
world. We live in a world with you have to power rank everything. You can't just have things. That's it. You have to power rank them accordingly, James. Yes. It's a power ranking world. We're just a couple of power ranking fools here.
So today we are power ranking our top quarterback, running back, 1-2 punches, combos in the Big 12. So without further ado, Taman has the big voice. You have the lead.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me is quarterback Drew Mestemaker and running back Caleb Hawkins for Oklahoma State. Face makes me think you think that's a little low for a duo moving up in competition level from the North Texas to Oklahoma State. And look, I mean, Hawkins yesterday made both of our lists in terms of the top 5 running backs in the conference. I'm assuming that Mestemaker will make both of our top 5 lists. And for these two players to transfer in to a new spot together with their same head coach, that's the reason for overt optimism. You know, Hawkins rushed for 1,400 yards last year, and Mestemaker ranked first nationally in passing yards per game with 34 touchdowns and 9.5 yards per attempt that led all qualifying passers. So I would say, in terms of new tandems, most exciting tandems, this would be it. Mestemaker and Hawkins.
Love it. They made my list as well. But at number 5, this is where I have Texas Tech's combo of Will Hammond and Cameron Dickey. Texas Tech won the Big 12, made the college football playoff with Baron Morton at quarterback. He's gone. Brendan Sorsby expected to be their star. He's not there, or this would probably be much higher. But Will Hammond, whether he plays 8 games, whether he plays the full 12, he was still a top 100 prospect out of high school. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week after his first, wasn't even a start, his first real action against Utah last year, but that torn ACL. Now, Cameron Dickey's going to do his thing. He was second-team All-Big 12, but I've got Texas Tech, Hammond, and Dickey at number 5.
Interesting. I have a different quarterback with Texas Tech and Cameron Dickey. Higher in my list.
Kirk Francis.
That's it. Number 4 for me is the Kansas State duo of Avery Johnson and Shoeless Joe Jackson. Johnson's one of the best pure athletes in the country at the quarterback position. He has over 1,000 yards rushing the last 2 seasons. I expect that he will be a big-time running quarterback and running threat this year with Colin Klein, who's a guy that obviously made a living out of being a really good dual-threat running quarterback. And, I mean, this is a season for Avery Johnson where he's got to reclaim that pre-2025 hype. Joe Jackson may be the most underrated running back in the Big 12. Had 911 yards rushing last year, 5.4 per carry. So the combination of those two guys and then whoever else emerges behind Joe Jackson is going to make this a very potent rushing attack. I think at worst, K-State will be second in the league in rushing this year, honestly. With Utah being number 2 in the country in rushing last year, it's going to be hard to beat them with what they have back. But, yeah, K-State at worst I think will be 2 in terms of rushing. So my number 4 duo, Avery Johnson and Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Love it. And winner, winner, chicken dinner, because we have a hit. I also have Avery Johnson and Joe Jackson at Kansas State at number 4, because Avery Johnson, nobody in the Big 12 was impacted more by dropped passes by their receivers, as we noted the other day. Also, he was one of only 9 power conference quarterbacks to throw for 18 touchdowns and rush for another 8. So even in what felt like a down year for him, he was still much better than I think he got credit for, especially considering everything they lost around him on the injury front. Meanwhile, Joe Jackson, the last 2 games of the season, he rushed for almost 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was third-team All-Big 12. Avery, I think, is a top 5 quarterback in this league. And so, yeah, that combo, Kansas State, I'm with you on the rushing attack. Those zone reads, those power reads, they are going to be very, very difficult to defend. I've got the K-State combo at number 4 as well.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me is the Utah Utes combo of Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker. Maybe the reason why they aren't higher on my list is just the dual threat piece. I'd like to see Dampier more as a passer, though he had really good passing numbers. But, I mean, you look, number 1, at Wayshawn Parker, who nearly rushed for 1,000 yards last year. And then, Devin Dampier, who had 835 yards, 5.7 per carry, and 10 touchdowns. But look, Dampier, 63.5% completion percentage, 2,400 yards. The big thing was 24 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. A year ago, he had a 58% completion percentage in 2024 with more yardage in 2,800, but 12 and 12 touchdown interceptions. So his passing was better. I think his passing's got to take another jump this year in terms of being more a high volume, probably less volume on the rushing side. Maybe balance it out a little bit. And we've already heard the new offensive coordinator for Utah say that they're going to have Wayshawn be way more of a feature back. So Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker for me, number 3.
Starting to think we are going to have very similar top 5s, maybe just in a different pecking order. At number 3 is where I have your number 5, Oklahoma State's combo of Drew Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins. Mestemaker led the nation in passing. Number 3 transfer portal player in the country, paired with the number 1 transfer portal player in the country and running back Caleb Hawkins, had one of the best freshman running back seasons of all time in college football history. He led the country in rushing touchdowns. But the other thing about Hawkins is, and Mestemaker's not much of a runner, right? So this isn't like a combo where you think it's going to be, they can hurt you on the ground. They're just 2 really good players at their position. But Hawkins is really underrated as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He had a several receiving touchdowns. He's kind of the safety valve for Mestemaker. So in a different way than the other guys on my list, Mestemaker and Hawkins at number 3, this new era, this new Oklahoma State offense.
Number 2.
Number 2 for me is the Texas Tech duo of Brendan Sorsby and Cameron Dickey. Look, I don't think Brendan Sorsby hires Jeffrey Kessler to not play this season, so I'm anticipating he's playing, and I've even baked that into my top 5 quarterback rankings, which we will have for you later on in the show today. But Cameron Dickey was all Big 12 second team. As a sophomore, led the Big 12 in rushing touchdowns with 14 and total touchdowns with 16. So the ability to be both a dual threat. And then, when you look at Dampier's number compared to Sorsby, I think Dampier would like to be a little bit closer to Sorsby in terms of that split. Sorsby last year, 100 carries for 580 yards and 9 touchdowns. So less volume on the rushing, but still very effective. And then higher volume in the passing. He did complete 62% of his passes this past year for 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 5 picks. So again, like more volume on the passing, less volume on the rushing, overall better numbers. Sorsby and Dickey, to me, number 2 in terms of the duo.
Yeah, I don't understand how Utah didn't get more credit for the season they had last year, because their losses were to Texas Tech when Devin Dampier was basically playing on one leg, and then a road loss at BYU by a field goal in which they had a chance to win that game. I look at Utah because I've got Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker at number 2. The Big 12 Offensive Newcomer of the Year in Dampier. Wayshawn Parker, who was almost a 1,000-yard rusher despite limited touches. He averaged almost 7 yards per carry. Like, Utah was top 5 nationally last year in scoring offense. They were the second best rushing offense in the entire country, with Dampier playing dinged up through an injury much of the season. They set a new school record for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, and their two-headed monster is back. So I have Devin Dampier and Wayshawn Parker at Utah at number 2.
Number 1.
It's like we have the same number 1, Bear Bachmeier and LJ Martin, the BYU duo at number 1, and this is a combination of the best running back in the Big 12 and LJ Martin. And I expect a major jump for Bear Bachmeier and his production here year 2. Look, Bachmeier, it's been well documented, true freshman, wasn't on campus for spring ball, joined in fall, and put together a pretty remarkable season considering 65% completion percentage, threw for over 3,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 7 picks. So, I mean, again, just compare that to Brendan Sorsby at 2,800 yards, had a lower completion percentage, now did have more touchdowns and less interceptions, but that's, I think, chalked up to the true freshman nature of Bear Bachmeier. I think Bachmeier is also going to be way more effective on the ground game. He had 147 carries for 527 and 11 touchdowns. I think Bachmeier is going to have a much higher yards per carry average this upcoming season because I think he's going to rush a lot less times than 147. So for me, it's unanimous. Bear Bachmeier, LJ Martin, number 1.
I have Bear Bachmeier and LJ Martin number 1 as well for all of those same reasons. Bear Bachmeier has shined in the spring, had a huge bowl game to end the year. LJ Martin trying to become the first running back in BYU history to lead the team in rushing 4 consecutive seasons, which I think he'll accomplish. I've got the BYU combo at number 1 as well. All right, T-Chains, what are we randomly power ranking today?
Okay, today is Dennis Rodman's birthday. I know Dennis Rodman. Ari loved growing up with Dennis. So you guys are ranking the top 5 one-of-ones in sports history because he surely was one of one.
It is Dennis Rodman's 65th birthday today.
65?
He is officially a senior citizen, if you can believe that.
I thought he just retired.
Yeah. I mean, good on Dennis Rodman. He's had substance abuse problems throughout his life and continues to do so, so good for him to make it to 65. But yeah, he is one of one and certainly an icon in my life growing up, and a guy that my kids are now obsessed with too. Like I got my youngest a Dennis Rodman jersey. He's definitely taken on the Dennis Rodman alter ego. Hopefully not in the drunk side of it. But
Rodman Bulls jersey?
Yeah. Oh,
Wasn't he like number 79 or something weird?
91.
91, that's it.
You know why? Because MJ, Scotty, and Phil needed help, and they called 911.
That is sweet. All right, who's your number 5?
Number 5, one of one, is Terrell Owens, because he mixed the flash with substance, right? I mean, the dude was annoying, obnoxious, but the dude was ridiculous. He broke his leg in the Super Bowl and played. Are you kidding me? And not only played, had a ridiculous game. Yeah, I mean, get your popcorn ready. He takes the popcorn with the Cowboys and tosses it in his mouth. I mean, the thing he did with the 49ers with the star.
Oh.
If you're not a Cowboy fan, it's one of the funniest things you've ever seen. He kept going to the star, and they couldn't stop him, and he kept going. And they had to tackle him. They had to spear him at the star because they couldn't do it in the field. You don't want him to go to the star? Stop allowing him to catch touchdown passes. Yep. The pride of UT Chattanooga. There will never be another T.O.
Dude, he just missed my list. I loved me some T.O. That's my quarterback. Number 5 for me is Mike Leach. Rest in peace to one of the all-time greats and a true one-of-one. Miss him dearly. 2-time National Coach of the Year back in 2008, and then again in 2018, reshaped college football with that air raid offense. He said that his only regret was that he was a licensed attorney and said that he regretted becoming a lawyer so that he could be closer to pirates. Mike Leach, the pirate man. Eric Morris has got some great Mike Leach stories about what he would do to him as a player. Just the ultimate prankster. Mike Leach at number 5.
That's a good one. I definitely had him omitted from my list, and I'm regretting it.
Who do you have at number 4?
Number 4.
Marshawn Lynch. Yes. I mean, is it a bit? Is he being real? I don't know. There's some Andy Kaufman to him, where it's like, I'm not sure if this is a bit or if this is real, but it's fantastic. Kenny Mayne with ESPN, he did this series for SportsCenter called Main Street, and one of the funniest Main Streets ever produced. And there were like 4 or 5 of them that were really funny. There was one with Jerry Rice playing flag football in Denver at the end of his career, and like how like some of the other flag football players were like, he's kind of intense. But the Marshawn Lynch one he did when he's drafted by Buffalo, and he was talking about all of the really nice restaurants in Buffalo, and he takes Kenny Mayne to Dave & Buster's, talking about like the nice restaurants, and he's like, I love the ambiance. So good. I would listen to Marshawn Lynch do anything and laugh hysterically. Marshawn Lynch, a true one of one. Oh, by the way, he was also a really good football player with tons of power.
Really good football, and drove a golf cart all over
that and Cal. Oh yeah, he's just such a great one of one. Marshawn Lynch.
I didn't realize how many Big 12 ties I had on my list until now. I've got Coach Prime at number 4. Deion Sanders, NFL Defensive Player of the Year back in 1994, coaching at Colorado, 2-time Super Bowl champ, 9-time All-Pro. But he also He was a 3-sport star at Florida State, baseball, football, and track. He ran track and field, and before a Florida State track meet, a teammate found him lounging by the pool in a bathrobe and flip-flops. He was talking on like one of those old 1988 brick-sized cell phones. And the teammate said, hey, the meet's about to start. Dion said, you ever seen a cheetah stretch before he runs? No stretching, took to the track, crushed it. Won the meet.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me is Meta World Peace, a.k.a. Ron Artest. If there was ever a Dennis Rodman type post-Dennis Rodman, it would be Meta World Peace, who was just Ron Artest, but he was drafted by the Bulls and then became, I don't know, an icon, very infamous. Changed his name to Meta World Peace, has a child named the Panda's Friend.
The Panda's Friend?
But the greatest Ron Artest, I mean, and again, all these guys are like not only crazy personalities, but also elite athletes and players in their primes. I mean, Meta World Peace was amazing. But like the greatest Meta World Peace story ever, I used to cover the Spurs. And so at the end of his career, Steven Jackson played for the Spurs. He played for the Spurs at the beginning, and then at the end, Steven Jackson, of course, and with Meta World Peace involved the Malice at the Palace. And so the media standing around, and after a game, and Steven Jackson's just talking, holding court because he loved to do that. He loved to feel important. And so Steven Jackson tells the story of the Malice at the Palace, and he says afterwards, it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Afterwards, they get back in the locker room, and with the most straight face ever, Ron Artest looks at him and goes, hey, do you think we'll get in trouble for that?
You think?
Steven Jackson's like, that's how crazy Ron Artest was. He did the Malice at the Palace, and then he asked, totally straight-faced, like, you think they're going to notice that?
Anybody saw that? What just happened? I was in the crowd. It was an accident. He's also been coaching, and he had a tweet when the K-State job came open after Tang got let go, and like he was kind of
vying for the job.
Yes.
You could do worse than that.
Totally agree. All right, number 3 for me is Chris Birdman Anderson.
The Birdman,
2013 NBA champ with the Heat. The 2005, he was part of the 2005 NBA Slam Dunk Contest. He attempted the same dunk 8 consecutive times and failed every single one. The crowd thought it was funny at first, and then they got super annoyed. And it's why now there is a timer. The NBA literally changed the rules afterwards because of Chris Birdman Anderson, covered in tats from head to toe. He's got free bird across his neck, honky tonk apparently across his stomach. Also was a decent player. The Birdman at number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2 for me is Mike Tyson. He's the only athlete whose Wikipedia page reads like a Netflix limited series. Youngest heavyweight champion ever. Face tattoo. Ate Evander Holyfield's ear. Did 3 years. Came back to fight again. Had a pet tiger. Is somehow still fighting at nearly 60 years old. I don't know if there's ever been another athlete that's had that many plot twists in their lives and career. Also seems like a genuinely great dude. Now, obviously, he's got his history and whatnot, but like at 57, he seems like a dude that's got great perspective and very unique. Mike Tyson, number 2.
And he was in The Hangover.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me is Chad Ochocinco. Yes, that's his real name. 2-time first-team All-Pro in the NFL. Because the NFL wouldn't let him put Ochocinco on the back of his jersey, so he legally changed his name to his jersey number in Spanish. Also, I didn't realize, like, Chad Ochocinco, so he saved 83% of his NFL earnings because he was buying fake jewelry from Claire's, he was flying Spirit Airlines, and driving himself everywhere. Never hired a driver. One of the most outlandish personalities in league history, was secretly one of the most financially disciplined players to ever play in the NFL. He also tried out for an MLS soccer team during the NFL lockout. He's attempted to ride a bull at a PBR event. Chad Ochocinco at number 2.
Yeah. There are times where he jumped the shark a little bit, but yeah, the financial stuff is stuff I knew, and I was amazed when I found that out the first time. I was like, what?
Now I see him on podcasts, I'm like, super intelligent.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Happy 65th birthday to the Worm, Dennis Rodman, number 1 on my list. 1 of 1. mean, we found out. Now, there were rumors of this stuff happening, but on The Last Dance, that the night before Game 6 of the NBA Finals, Phil Jackson said, "Dennis, go to Vegas and go have some fun for 24 hours." Huh?
It's a bad idea.
And then come back and play in like one of the most consequential games of your career, which he did. I mean, he invented the category that we're power ranking here, one of one. I remember as a kid growing up in Chicago, there was a time where he had his hair dyed at this salon at this mall by my house. And when word got out that he was there getting his hair dyed, I'm not kidding you, thousands of people were in this mall standing outside the salon waiting for him to come out, not realizing that there was a back door that he had both walked in and gotten out of. But for hours, thousands of, like, that's how big of a deal he was in that city at that point in time.
Yeah.
You had people, thousands of people lined up to watch him walk out, and he never did.
He's number one on my list as well. People loved him. And I remember when the Bulls signed him, it was like, okay, this is very much outside the Bulls' way. Like, is this going to fit? Is this going to work? On the floor, he was the perfect teammate.
Yeah, he was. He married himself in a wedding dress. He became friends with the North Korean dictator. I mean, yeah, wow. 65. Happy birthday, Dennis Rodman, the Worm, from South Oak Cliff High School in Dallas, Texas.
65 years old. All right, Shreyas Laddha from the Kansas City Stars coming up next. Ton of Darren Peterson stuff. We'll look at KU's basketball roster, and then we power rank the top 5 quarterbacks, part of our Modelo top 5 players at each position series. That's still to come here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Floating into the end zone. It's intercepted by Canada. The second interception for the TCU defense.
Now just shy of the 45. Here's Greenwood to the perimeter with a first down. And into TCU territory, hit by Canada.
Comes out with the zone option here coming off. You see him holding the football there because he can throw the football. If Love makes a block there.
So he's come back this year, had to earn the job in fall camp, did so, and he's been great. This quick hitter from Wilson, and an immediate tackle in the open field. DeJon Stanley with the catch, but stopped well short. Wilson going to check down to the left. It's 1-on-2. A little hesitation move, and then Bernard gets shoved out of bounds.
Plays in the block here. Morton's pass. Out route complete, but short of the first down yardage.
Is Maaba floating into the end zone.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. Our first guest on this Wheels Off Wednesday is Shreyas Laddha, covers Kansas for the KC Star. And Shreyas, let's jump right in, man. The NBA draft lottery is set. Where will our guy Darren Peterson end up?
That's a great question. I think in the most stacked draft class imaginable, I'd be a little surprised if the Utah Jazz trade up. I know there's a feeling that, maybe he goes one or maybe he goes two. I think the consensus right now is DeBounce is a little ahead of Peterson, according to most draft experts and scouts. But I think he's going one or two. As long as the medical's clear, it's one or two. But I'd be a little surprised if Utah says, "Hey, we want to trade up to get DeBonza," and then the Wizards trade down. But who knows? My prediction is top two.
Shreyas, you did such a good job this year reporting on the Peterson situation, and you got to the bottom of the cramping and the hospital visit and the going back to the Hell Week stuff, right? So, knowing what you know, would you take him number one overall?
That's a great question. I would take him number one overall based on his high school tape and based on some of the highlights we saw at Kansas, the BYU game, first half, a few different moments during this season where he looked really, really good. I think he has to pass the medical tests that whatever teams are looking at him run. To me, the creatine excuse doesn't really pass the sniff test, to be candidly.
Right.
I don't really understand why he came out with that at that moment. Maybe it is actually creatine, but I feel like first of all, I'm not a medical doctor, so, do not take anything I say as a de facto fact, but I've taken creatine over the past few years. You just got to drink a lot of water. So does that mean he was just dehydrated? I'm confused on how he got these horrible cramps. To me, it seems like he probably just wasn't drinking a lot of water. If that's the case, that's fixable. But I don't know how an athlete of his caliber was not drinking that much water. But as long as the medical tests clear and there's nothing lingering or bad, I think I would take him number one overall. He's been better than AJ in every matchup going back to high school. I think he has tremendous skill set on the defensive end. AJ, no disrespect to him, he's 6'9". He had 12 blocks and steals all season. How did he not luck into a couple more blocks and steals? I think Darren is the best shooter among the first 3-4 guys. I really like his skill set, and I think, on a team like Washington, he could play great along Trae Young. I know there's been some murmurs of his camp saying he wants to play point guard, or I think he talked about wanting to play point guard in the ESPN article a few days ago. But he wasn't great as a playmaker at Kansas, and a little bit of that was probably injury related. Slash the role wasn't that needed, but I think the peak of what Darren Peterson can offer based on his high school tape and what we saw in college is higher than AJ DeBonza. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think as long as the medical is clear, I'd feel comfortable taking him number one.
Yeah, and I'm with you, dude, because the ceiling's higher, and you know how I felt about him all year.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say is, if I'm an NBA team, if I'm Washington, I'm having a very candid conversation with Bill Self, because I think of all the people you might talk to in his history, he may be the best in terms of answering legitimately. And then
yes,
the other thing is, I want to give Darren Peterson credit because, Trey White, Melvin Council, Bryson Tiller, those guys carried Kansas throughout the majority of the season, but they disappeared in the biggest moments of the season for Kansas, those final 4 games. And Peterson was there. Peterson played his best ball at those times. So it's our opinions, mine especially, was made up by that time. But, man, those guys disappeared, and Peterson was there. And for me, that says a lot about why I would take him at number one, too.
No, I completely agree. The team just wasn't constructed super well around him in the sentiment of providing him with shooting, providing him with the right guys around him. And a little bit of that is his own fault and his camp's fault. I know there was some influence on, what roster they put out there. Peterson and his camp definitely had a little bit of we like this guy, we like that guy kind of influence type thing. Not the end all be all, but his opinion and his camp's opinion mattered. But like this is the thing. Like we see all the time, right? These college guys struggle in the wrong system for them or not the right fit with the players around them, and then they have much better NBA careers. I would not be surprised if that's the case with Darren Peterson. As long as you can say, hey, he's not medically messed up from whatever it was this past year that caused the crampings, whether it is creatine or something more or something less, then I'd feel comfortable with saying, hey, I'm going to take a chance. But I get, there's some level of risk aversion. Like Utah's in a better position where they don't really have to think about it too hard
Yes.
because they get, like to pick. They don't have to pick.
Yeah, totally agree.
Shreyas, what was your experience like dealing with Darren Peterson's camp? And then how does that carry over and translate to the NBA at the next level?
Yeah, his camp is, difficult to deal with at different points this past season. I've never had a more difficult camp experience, honestly,
Like
candidly.
what sorry to cut you off. What is a camp? How many people are in this camp?
Okay, so his camp is his parents, his agent, his brother, his high school coach Ryan Bernardi, his manager. Uh, those were like the five, six people I've kind of like orbited around, talked to. Candidly, the professionals in the camp were a lot better about getting back to me about things than the non-professionals. That said, the agent didn't really want to play ball at different points this past season. I definitely think, and Darren talked about this, he did himself a little bit of a disservice waiting till the Big 12 tournament to talk about the things that went down this past season. And like I think the ESPN article said it's like HIPAA for like Bill Self to not talk about it. Guys, it's not HIPAA. Like I
right.
can't believe it was printed out there. It's not HIPAA. Like that's not he's not a doctor. That was a ridiculous statement in an article that I already was questioning a little bit. But look, I think it was a very interesting sentiment when that story came out. There were two people in the camp that were like, great story. I'm happy it came out there. Great article. And the two people in the camp that told me that, well, they were the professionals in the camp. And the people I didn't hear from, the non-professionals. So, look, they could have come out there and been ahead of this narrative of what was and what wasn't a long time ago. And I get it. You don't want to talk about all this medical stuff. But, like, when they had the ESPN interview back in February, they could have talked a little more about it. I think candidly, I will say, I don't think I've ever seen a camp more like things happen and certain people in the camp just don't know what's going on, you know? And they are the professionals whose job is to do those things. So, how it affects the NBA? Well, I've had some, draft friends of mine in different media outlets, etc., tell me that there's some level of sentiment that they don't want to deal with certain people in Darren's camp. Had scouts tell me the same thing. I think inherently, the minute he goes to the league, there's not as much influence that the camp can have. He's not Kawhi Leonard at this moment in time, right? Like he can't pick and choose when to play, when not to play, whenever he deals with these things. So, look, I think Bill Self had his hand behind his back because that's what modern college basketball is. I think the NBA is not going to stand for that, and I don't think the influence is going to be there as much from the camp either because we saw it with like LeVar Ball, right? Like with his sons, he had a lot more influence when they were in college and when they were in high school. And the minute you go to the NBA, he's kind of quieted down relatively and let things just play out.
Great point. Looking at this year's roster, to me, Tyron Stokes represents maybe a different set of problems, but the one thing that he does have is an edge, right? I mean, people have said already, like, oh, he wouldn't even be a top 5 pick in this draft. So I think he's got an edge to him. What do you make of the roster construction for Kansas in next year?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a really interesting roster. You're building around Tyron Stokes, but also you're building around a lot of youth, right? The top 3 scorers are probably going to be some combination of Tyron Stokes, Leroy Blyden, and Taylor Kinney or Keanu Doss. I like the roster in the sense that like they've gotten more shooting than previous years. They have a guy probably coming off the bench that can give you like maybe 10, 12 a game in Dennis Parker Jr. The 3 through 5 is a lot better equipped to rebound the ball, which they struggled with last year. if Leroy Blyden and Taylor Kinney are the 1 and 2, it might be a little undersized. But I was talking to Taylor Kinney yesterday. Actually, he told me he's grown to 6'3", 6'4". I'd love to see what the official measurements are, because if so, like that's a big thing. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
you'd be starting 2 6'1" guards, assuming obviously Cole Rosario doesn't take a massive leap forward and take the second starting shooting guard position. But I like the roster in the sense that, like, I think they'll still be a good defensive team, even if with the drop off at the center position, whether it's Paul Embiid or Christian Reeves. I think their scoring should be a little better just because they have some more shooting around Taylor Kinney and sorry around Tyron Stokes. There's some level of familiarity between Taylor Kinney and Tyron Stokes because they played AU ball together. My one issue with this roster is it's just a lot of question marks of, like, can these guys score the ball? Will there be freshman walls for Taylor Kinney and Tyron Stokes? And the answer is yes. At different points of the season, upcoming season, they're absolutely going to have some issues scoring the ball. And will there be an adjustment period for Leroy Blyden? How big was the drop off at the center spot between rim protection for whoever is Paul Embiid or Christian Reeves? But on paper, I like this roster more than I like last year's roster.
Yes.
Yep. Us too. Us too. Shreyas Latta from the KC Star covers KU. Thanks, Shreyas. Awesome stuff, man. Appreciate
You're the
it.
best, Reyes. Be well, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
Shreyas Latta from the Kansas City Star, all over the Darren Peterson stuff. Nobody better, and getting more in with that Peterson camp than Shreyas all year long.
And let me just quickly say, sorry to cut you off there. I know we're due for a break, but him saying that he would still take Darren Peterson number 1 says a lot, because this dude knows way more than he's reported, and what he's reported is there's some red flags in there. So I think for somebody that is as close to the situation, has been frustrated by the situation, he was chasing that story all year. He was, in conversation with his dad, and with very important people that were very close to him, and could not get them to agree to something. And even when they did, they wouldn't show up. So he has more reason to be frustrated by Darren Peterson than anybody else, and he still would take him number 1 overall.
He might still go number 1. Coming up next, our top 5 players at each position series continues. We hit Big 12 quarterbacks today. It's brought to you by Modelo. We rank the top 5 QBs in this conference on Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Bachmeier delivers, caught miraculously by Chase Roberts. Comfortable in the pocket here. Chase Roberts turning it, coming the other way, inside the 30, and Chase Roberts.
And it is a bookstore, but it's really a museum.
Well, they might put that one in the museum one day. Good catch by Chase Roberts. At BYU, 5 minutes to go in the first. Bachmeier surveys, pulls, touchdown Cougars. Mr. BYU, Chase Roberts.
Off the RPO, what a strike. Chase Roberts chugging across the 40, tight ropes the sideline, and finally pulled down by Darian Lewis at the 4-yard line.
We are Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. And each and every day, we highlight something when it comes to college football in the Big 12 and a different series. And we've been going through the top 5 players at each position in the Big 12. We started on the defensive side of the football, then pivoted over to offense, and we have finally hit quarterbacks. So we are ranking the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big 12 before we grab Matt Babcock, NBA draft analyst for Babcock Hoops, to talk about the NBA draft combine. But at the quarterback position, Ari, let's see what your top 5 looks like.
All right, so remember, it's not a power ranking. A very important distinction here. It's just ranking the top 5 at every position, and we made it all the way to quarterback. I agonized over the number 5 spot. Devin Dampier, the Utah quarterback, number 5 for me. Third highest graded quarterback in the Big 12 according to Pro Football Focus. Only Sorsby and Fafita graded out higher. 2490 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 835 rushing yards with 10 scores. Made him only one of 5 FBS quarterbacks with 2,400 passing yards and 800-plus rushing yards. And the only one in the Big 12 of that. He was the Vegas Bowl MVP with 310 passing yards, 148 rushing yards, 5 total touchdowns against Nebraska. Look, I would say even with the new OC, but with many returning players, he's poised for a big year. Now they've got to replace their offensive line, and I think they've got the pieces to do it, but it's hard to replace 2 first-round picks along your offensive line at the tackle position. So that's my biggest question mark about Dampier and maybe why he's not higher, but I've got Devin Dampier at 5.
Wow. Agonized with Devin Dampier.
Well, it wasn't agonizing over Dampier. It was agonizing over to put 5.
Oh, okay. Got it. Number 5 for me is where I have Avery Johnson, the Kansas State quarterback.
Whoa.
Big eyes. All right. One of only 3 quarterbacks
Homer
in K-State history with 5,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. 18 touchdowns, 6 picks, almost 500 yards last year on the ground, even when K-State didn't want him running as a runner. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. Wins and losses-wise, 2025 was a rough year. But Avery Johnson did all he could at the quarterback position. The only thing that separates him from elite K-State quarterbacks are the wins and the losses, which his best season, wins and losses, was his first year in Manhattan. But with the new coach, I'm banking on Colin Klein to get him to that level. I've got Avery at number 5.
Number 4 for me is Bear Bachmeier. I went Utah and BYU back-to-back here. And, look, I expect that Bear Bachmeier is going to have a dramatic improvement year over year. Aaron Roderick, year 2 for him with Bear Bachmeier. Again, I'm just going to continue to belabor the point. He did not have spring football at BYU. He was in Palo Alto, California at Stanford. So the fact that he put up the numbers he put up with very limited reps as a true freshman is nothing short of a miracle. He was one of the best intermediate passers in college football last year. With 75% accuracy rate on those intermediate routes. I think that's where he's going to take the biggest jump from his mixing of short, intermediate, and long. Because he became a little bit too obvious. When you look at what Texas Tech did defensively against him in the Big 12 championship game, they sat on those intermediate routes. Big reason why Ben Roberts at the game that he had, he was right in that wheelhouse of where Bachmeier wanted to go. Look, they had to expand very slowly with the true freshman quarterback who was just learning the new system. I think there's a lot more they can put on his plate this year and will. The biggest question is the weapons, but I do like what they have with Casper and JoJo Phillips. And then, Walker Lyons at tight end. I just mixed Walker Lyons and Carson Ryan together. Number 4 for me is Bear Bachmeier.
Okay, we have a hit. I have Bear Bachmeier at number 4 as well, which potentially I felt could be too low. First true freshman in BYU history to start a season opener. They end up 12-2. He has his best game in the bowl game. And I thought the growth that we saw from the Big 12 championship game, when they had about a month between the Big 12 championship and their bowl game, at least 3 weeks, he had his best game of the year in the bowl game. We saw his down-the-field passing much better. He led BYU to 4 comeback wins on the road as a true freshman. So all the intangibles, he's the second youngest of 5 kids, had a ton of brothers, one that plays on the team. Like, he just has that it factor and that swagger that I didn't think BYU would be able to replace from Jake Retzloff because I thought that was his number one strength, but Bear has it. So the mechanics is the next step for him. 25 total touchdowns, though, as a freshman. Can't overlook that. I've got Bear at number 4 as well.
Yeah, number 3 for me is the Oklahoma State transfer quarterback, Drew Mestemaker. Curious if he made your top 5 because, obviously there's a ton of hype around him. Look, and for good reason. I mean, Mestemaker put up a ridiculous season last year, 69% completion percentage, 4,300 yards passing, 34 touchdowns and 9 picks. He also had 5 rushing touchdowns, which may be the most underrated aspect of his game as a red zone threat. Eric Morris is not afraid to run his quarterback in the red zone, which is why he had 57 carries for 89 yards and 5 touchdowns, right? So not a huge threat with his run with his legs, but a threat with his legs in the red zone. Look, he's got to make a big jump. I think the windows to throw will be a little bit muddier this year in the Big 12 as it was in the American Athletic Conference, but with all of the players that are joining him, at the wide receiver position, running back, his head coach, there's reason for optimism around him, and it's why I have him number 3.
Number 3 on my list is Devin Dampier. And I will say I don't have anybody on my list that may or may not play this season. I have 5 guys on my list that I know are going to play, which is why I think our lists are shaping
who
up
you're
to
talking
look
about.
a little bit different. Devin Dampier's number 3 for me. He was the preseason newcomer of the year. He delivered 24 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, almost 900 rushing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. He was the Las Vegas Bowl MVP, and he was one of only 5 FBS quarterbacks to throw for a certain number and rush for a certain number. He's one of the top 5 dual-threat quarterbacks in the entire country. Was the first Utah quarterback since Alex Smith in 2004 to have 6 games of 200 yards passing and 50 yards rushing, delivering 11 wins his first year in Salt Lake City. High expectations for year 2 at the helm, but I've got Devin Dampier at number 3.
Number 2 for me is the Arizona quarterback Noah Fafita. Too low? The best returning,
I shrugged my shoulders.
The best returning quarterback in the Big 12 that is guaranteed to start the season as the quarterback. I'll say it that way.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, he had the 10th bet. He's number 10 in returning quarterback via Pro Football Focus grade. And he was the number 1 ranked Big 12 quarterback, according to Pro Football Focus, entering 2026. At 1.9% turnover-worthy play. So we can look at all these stats, but, the dude just has a command of the offense. And I think the best part about this whole deal is this is his first time having a second straight year with the same offensive coordinator, and it's a very good one in Seth Dagey, who's a guy that understands offense in the Big 12 and understands offense in general. Fafita this year, to me, is still underrated, I think, relative to the national stage. He broke on as a freshman and then returned, even though Jed Fish didn't. Had a bad year, down year, and then was back up last year with Seth Dagey in tow, and I think another year within that offense, he's going to get back to what he was as a freshman. He's going to be comfortable within this offense. I mean, he's just a very unique person. There's a really interesting breakdown of Fafita from Heather Dinich did an Around the Nation piece, and she asked Brent Brennan his favorite thing about spring, and he said Noah Fafita, who took $3 million less to stay with the Wildcats this year.
Man.
He said, quote, Brennan, that shouldn't surprise me considering he's the most loyal, special young adult I've ever met. But everybody keeps trying to buy him, and it doesn't stop. And he keeps saying no because he's loyal to the U of A. I think we put some good pieces around him offensively in the wide receiver room, and for us, so much of that was just retention. Yeah.
Turned down $3 million. Not $1 million, not $1.5 million, $3 million.
And a guy that, at this point, I mean, he's not exactly an NFL radar quarterback. He's 5'10",
Right.
195 pounds.
What a story. All right, number 2 for me is where I have Drew Mestemaker, the Oklahoma State quarterback. Led the nation in passing, completed 69%, almost 70%.
I'm sorry, you have an American Athletic
of his
Conference
passes.
quarterback, number 2, had 3 guys that have played in the Big 12 for multiple years.
Yes, because
For a year.
he's expected to be a top 15 NFL draft pick.
Yeah, that's fair.
I trust the NFL and the scouts, and he was the American Conference Player of the Year. He was an All-American, and Eric Morris, his track record is remarkable. Cam Ward went from Incarnate Word to Washington State to the number 1 overall pick in the draft. after he broke out at Miami. I see the same for Mestamaker, who's already done it on paper. On paper, he's better than Cam Ward and all those other guys. He's better than Cam Ward was at Incarnate Word. He's better than Cam Ward was at Washington State. So I trust in Coach Morris, which is why I have Mestamaker so high.
All right, so far we have only one difference in our top 5, and that would be you have Avery Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Who's your number 1?
Brendan Sorsby. Look, I'm, again, anticipating that he's going to be playing this year. Will he play every game? I don't know. But he's going to play this year. I have confidence in that based on his hiring of Jeffrey Kessler. And I think he does that thinking he's got a shot in order to get eligible for this season. And I think Kessler takes on this case thinking that he'd have a shot to get him eligible for the season. Sorsby was the most sought-after quarterback in the portal. Multiple outlets have reported that LSU and Indiana made offers to him, and Texas Tech outbid them, plus provided the best opportunity for him to be successful and to immediately transition to the NFL because that's what he's looking for. He could go in the NFL supplemental draft, but he needs 1 year at Texas Tech to prove that he's a first-round pick because he's not going to be viewed as a first-round pick right now. And he's got the potential to do it with the receivers they have, the weapons they have, and his dual threat ability. I mean, this is a guy that his ability to chunk yardage on the ground and through the air, just give him the right offense and the right mix, and I think this is it. So Brendan Sorsby, number 1 for me.
I was just trying to verify that Sorsby was first team All Big 12 last year. No, he was second team. Noah Fafita was first team All Big 12. So I go with Noah Fafita at number 1. Eligible or not, I think I'd still have Fafita number 1.
Ooh.
He's only 5'10". He's only 190 pounds. That's the only thing holding him back. What he did last year, 29 touchdowns, 6 picks, 65% benchmark completion rate. First Arizona quarterback to earn first-team all-conference honors since 1975. He's already Arizona's all-time leader in touchdowns, only the second player in program history to be the primary quarterback for 2 9-win seasons. He's been playing since he was a freshman. I don't see any drop-off from Fafita. If you're first-team All-Big 12, if you have pieces around you, I don't see any way he's not that. At least going into the season, he would be my preseason number 1. So, yeah, the only discrepancy when you look at our list is the Sorsby piece of the whole thing. How many games does he have to play to be considered first-team All-Big 12? I think you have to play like 75% of the season. So that would be 8 games that he would have to play. But in terms of NFL future, it's probably him or Mestamaker at number 1.
Yeah.
Who'd we miss? Who just missed?
Well, I mean, you can make the case for Connor Wigman. And, look, you and I are both extremely optimistic about Houston this year. And there's a lot to like about Houston this year from a team perspective. But in terms of isolating the top 5 quarterbacks, to me, there's just no justification for keeping him out. In fact, I probably would have had Avery Johnson higher than Wigman on my list. I mean, Wigman is your classic, low attempt, high completion percentage, easy throws, easy wins. Maybe year 2 in the same system, he'll be better. He's got to be, to me. For them to take a huge step to become Big 12 champs, it's about Wegman taking that next jump. Like, if Houston is really going to become Big 12 champions, Wegman is going to be a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought there was a pretty clear gap between the top 7 and then everybody else that has a lot of transfers that look great on paper, but how does it translate against Big 12 competition? All right, coming up next, we talk NBA Draft Combine with Matt Babcock, NBA Draft Analyst for Babcock Hoops. That's around the corner. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Today, powered by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn.
Extended drive, brings up a 3rd and goal.
Stats crew. 3. Runs free.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by our friends at Modelo. Another friend of the program is Matt Babcock, who does sensational work at Babcock Hoops, NBA draft analyst. He's at the Combine. Hey, Matt, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
So, question I have about the Combine, how does this, I guess, how much stock do teams put into what happens at the Combine for the NBA compared to, like, the NFL?
You know, I think there's a lot of different ways of looking at this, and keep in mind that there's a lot going on here. I mean, so it's not just what you're seeing on TV as far as the kids running around and, getting their measurements and physical testing. I mean, I think, 1-on-0 shooting and drill work should not move the needle much. But I would say the kids meeting with the teams and the team interviews, I think, is very important. The medical testing, which will go on this weekend, very important. And then the 5-on-5 play, which starts today, that's an opportunity for some of the kids to move the needle a little bit, which will be more of a second round prospect. So there's a bunch of different areas of the Combine that allow kids to move the needle in one direction or another.
Obviously the huge discussion is the pick at number 1. How do you evaluate the discussion there between DeBonsa and Peterson?
Yeah, I mean, both are terrific prospects. I think, just how this season unfolded, I think at this point, most scouts and executives have a higher confidence level in DeBonsa. But, I mean, this week's going to be important for Peterson. I think the team interviews and the medicals, as I mentioned, I think that will likely give teams more confidence or not, in Peterson. So I think there's probably, internal debate as far as where Washington would go, or if they're taking phone calls with other teams. But my impression now is DeBonsa is the number 1 guy.
Who are some other guys from the Big 12 that have moved the needle one way or another at the Combine, either good or bad?
We're just getting started here. But I think yesterday they did do, at the end of the session, a little bit of controlled live action. I thought Chris Sinak looked terrific. He's clearly done a great job with the physical development. Just playing really well. I think his whole approach, it was impressive. I think he's somebody that's definitely helped himself.
Yeah, I'm curious for kind of how you think the top 5 will go, and do you see any differences between maybe public opinion on it with Boozer at 3 versus Boozer at 4 and Wilson at 3 and vice versa? I mean, it seems like the top 4 is pretty set, but the order might be different. And then who do you think is 5? Is it Wagler? Is it Acuff?
Yeah, I think my best guess at this point, we've got a lot of work to do in between now and the draft, is that the consensus is going to add up, with DeBonsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson. At 5, it's an interesting spot. The Clippers had just traded for Darius Garland. I think sort of changes how you look at who you can put next to him. I think Keaton Wagler is a guy, he measured 6'5" without shoes, can play on the ball, off the ball. Seems like a more natural fit than some of the other guard options as far as Darius Acuff or Kingston Fleming's. And so myself and I think a lot of guys in similar positions as me are assuming that they'll go Wagler because of those reasons.
What stood out about Chris Sinak, and how high could he potentially climb?
It was just the overall impression he gave impressed me. It seems like his development. I mean, he seems like on the right trajectory development wise. I mean, measured well. This is a 6'10" guy who's physically filling out, shooting threes very cleanly. Good athlete. Just he seems like a guy that fits the modern NBA well as far as play the 4 or the 5. I think right now I've got him mid first round. I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of build himself up and becoming a late lottery pick.
Yeah. I know we asked about the number 1 pick, and I think, consensus does feel like it's going to be DeBonsa. I'm just curious, Matt, if you're the GM for the Wizards and you're making that pick, who are you talking to? What kind of background are you doing to figure out? Because to me, Peterson has the higher ceiling, even though DeBonsa's not going to be bad, right? You're going to get a great player either way, it feels. But, you also don't want to miss on an all-timer versus, a elite player that's, maybe an MVP award type guy. I guess just give us your sense here. If you're the Wizards GM, what are you doing behind the scenes to try to figure out who you should take?
Yeah, I mean, there's keep in mind these teams have a lot of resources, and I mean they spend a lot of money and time on their scouting and gathering background information, and there's really, I mean, no stone left unturned in these processes. So they talk to everybody, and I think a lot of it is, I mean, the first step is figuring out who has the talent. I mean, we're at that point where we know who's got potential, who's got the on-court talent. Now you're splitting hairs. And so, I mean, all the little stuff matters. I mean, like, we're looking at these measurements and the physical testing. The interviews are huge. And then, the intel gathering as far as getting a grip of these guys' personalities and their habits and all the little details, because, I mean, we're looking at guys that in most cases are, 18, 19 years old and try and project who they're going to become as men when they're 25, And so I think there's like no detail that isn't important in this decision-making process just because of how competitive things are.
Yeah.
Talking with Matt Babcock from Babcock Hoops. And, Matt, you had a write-up on Peterson. Now, this was back during March Madness, but I would love for you to elaborate on, because I think this is a really interesting nugget, that part of Peterson's camp was somebody who knows how to navigate the draft process strategically. And then you noted Kobe Bryant back in 1996 fell to number 13, and there were a lot of dynamics that led to that in terms of fit and the player and the team and everything else. So can you touch more on what's going on there?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, since the lottery that the camp is doing any kind of trickery. But I mean, generally speaking, agents do kind of force their hand in a lot of situations, scare teams off, and try to manipulate the draft. And I think a lot of these types of conversations and sort of game planning, if you will, start now. I mean, everybody's really trying to get their ducks in a row from every angle, whether it's the team, the agents, and so like a big part of this week is everybody exchanging information, having a lot of discussions and figuring out like where the kids fit into the NBA draft ecosystem. And so, like I said, I haven't heard anything as far as them trying to dodge any picks at this point. But we'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah. And how big of a data point is the combine in your estimation? I mean, we know what it means for the NFL, but like how much are NBA evaluators looking at the combine versus the full breadth of work? Is it 50-50? Kind of give us a sense here of how important combine numbers are.
I sure hope that it doesn't move the needle too much. I mean, my feeling is if your staff as a whole does their job throughout the year, the combine is certainly valuable, but there shouldn't be any like huge shockers, and I think that's how it is in most cases. And I mean, as far as like the measurements and all that, I mean, there's a few kids where the measurements were disappointing, and I mean, it definitely hurts. I don't think it's necessarily game changer type stuff. I mean, Amari Allen, Alabama, he measured 6'5", even though he was listed 6'8". On the Alabama roster, that was a little eye opening. I mean, that's a 3-inch difference. So now we're looking at a guy that probably needs to be penciled in as a 2-guard rather than a 3-man Swiss Army knife. That's pretty dramatic. And for a guy like Adai Mara, 9'9" standing reach. We knew he was huge, but I mean, seeing that tangible number, that definitely helps on some level or another.
Matt, are there any guys that come to mind with, players that are kind of testing the NBA draft waters that could come back to college nationally or in the Big 12? There's several, in Momcilovic and Christian Anderson, and I think Tunde Yesufu was another one, Koa Pete. So what's your take on some of those guys?
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting conversation right now, and I think that group. I mean, that's a great group to look at as far as examples there. And Koa Pete, I'm really interested to see what happens there. He didn't show very well in the drill work. His shooting does not seem like it's going in the right direction. He struggled with his perimeter skill work. And as it stands now, I mean, I'm expecting him to probably be somewhere in the late teens, early 20s. And assuming Arizona can come up with a big NIL bag, that's an interesting decision for Koa and his camp. And my impression is that he probably will go back to school. Just looking at his range and his assumed money. But I think all those guys kind of fall in that boat of just it doesn't make sense to stay in school and make a lot of money and continue to develop. Next year's draft is not going to be nearly as good. But I mean, we're all kind of in a wait and see mode right now.
So you think those guys are better off going back to school? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, generally speaking, I think so. I mean, keep in mind there's a lot of conversations with the agents right now as well. They just trying to get a grip of like what the exact range is for their players, just to mitigate the risk and all that. And so, but it's interesting because it's all unprecedented for everybody involved.
Yeah.
The NIL money being what it is now, it's just new. And so, I mean, the decision-making processes are completely different than how they've been in years past.
Aside from the money part, man, I'm really interested in this because the coaching angle to me is really interesting too, because I think you can make the case, from where you're going to get better coaching, and then obviously the minutes too, right? Like you need to play basketball. That's also important. And
right.
Some of these guys, aren't going to get the minutes. They'll go back and forth between the G League and the NBA. But, you do have a lot more time as opposed to being an athlete or a student athlete. Just kind of help us understand the coaching dynamics here and what maybe NBA teams would prefer. Would they prefer? And I'm sure there's certain schools where you've got really good coaching, and in other schools maybe the coaching isn't as good. You're obviously then also looking at like, okay, if they go to this school, are they developing the area that they need to? I don't know. I'm just curious for kind of your overall thoughts on the coaching and whether or not going back to school is more beneficial from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, from a development standpoint, I think one thing that's really changed with the college basketball landscape is all the top players all end up at big schools, and the big schools have a lot of resources similar to the NBA. And I think you hit the nail on the head as far as developing as a basketball player. You need to play basketball, and so like that's one thing that I would fear if I was looking at this. From the player's perspective of like, okay, if I'm somewhere in the 20s or early 30s, am I somebody that's at risk of spending time in the G League? And I sure as hell would rather be at the University of Arizona or wherever than playing in the G League, playing in the minor leagues. And so I think that's something that these kids need to look in the mirror and really ask themselves some tough questions.
Awesome stuff. Matt Babcock joining us here on Big 12 today, covering the NBA draft. He's at the Combine. Matt, thank you so much for hopping on.
All right, thank you.
Matt Babcock. Check out his work at Babcock Hoops. That's Babcock Hoops, just how it sounds.com. NBA draft analyst joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you by Modelo. We've got Oklahoma State women's basketball coach Jacie Hoyt coming up at the top of the hour, so less than 20 minutes. Coming up next, what does the Big 12 look like in, let's say, 2029? He's I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio. Play fake. Sorsby taking a shot. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Irie connecting for a touchdown. Sorsby hits Cyrus Allen for the second time today.
And again, his confidence is growing.
The heart always said to commit to a school, not a coach. That's why he has persevered in Cincinnati. Now he'll launch for the end zone. Perfectly thrown ball. Touchdown, Cyrus Allen.
Jimmy's got it. Laser for a touchdown. Cyrus Allen. Cincinnati back on the high side.
Great start at 5-1, equaling the win total from last season. Out of empty on first down. Sorsby to Allen across the middle. Broken tackle. Touchdown. Cincinnati strikes first. Done, thank you. We start the second with an option pitch. Around the edge, Cyrus Allen is in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Joe Warner back onto the field, top of your screen. Pressure comes. Cyrus Allen out of the backfield with his third touchdown. This offense has been unstoppable. Sorsby has 55 of the 183 rushing yards. Fires to the end zone. This time to Allen.
Slow motion for me, slow motion for me, moving slow motion for me.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio on a Wheels Off Wednesday. Don't miss the Big 12 Power Hour, part of our spring football post-spring whip around. We highlight a different team each day right here on the channel. Today we look at the Utah Utes. That starts at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time later today. And we're about 15 minutes away from catching up with Oklahoma State women's basketball coach Jacie Hoyt, who most publications have as the number one transfer portal class in the country, highlighted by Audie Crooks, the All-Big 12 post player who goes from Iowa State to Oklahoma State. They have absolutely loaded up in the portal. But before that, Ari, let me just ask you a very simple, basic question. What will the Big 12 look like in, say, 2029? Media rights deal up in 2031. ACC exit fees plummet in the next several years. Let's just pick a number. Let's say 2029. No wrong answers.
Well, 2029 is an interesting one because it feels like more of the changes will come in 2030 and 2031. Because to your point, I think the huge pivot point is in 2030 when that when the out for ACC teams is lessened. And I think if you put that to the side for a second to answer your question, I think it's going to look similar to how it looks right now in terms of the composition, but momentum towards something larger, something bigger. I maintain that the ACC is going to implode. And what's really interesting, too, is when you look at some of the recent numbers that have come out, and I know that's a reason why we're talking about this, is some of the recent fiscal year filings that show revenues distributed across these conferences, there's a pretty large discrepancy between what schools in the ACC are taking home. And I think over time that's going to create a level of disdain that is unsustainable. So there's two ways to look at this. Either the big dogs, who have already threatened to leave, Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, Duke, either they leave and that implodes the conference, or it slowly implodes because the schools that are making, let's say, $40 million, while North Carolina and Florida State make $70 million every year, Brett Yormark may say, hey, Louisville, we got an opportunity here for you to make X. And that's higher than Y, which is what they're getting right now, especially as they're looking up in the conference at the big dogs who are making tons more. So to me, it's coming from both sides. It's either a disdain for the top of the league and an opportunity that the Big 12 may have to say, hey, you can earn more here and be on equal footing as everybody else, and you're part of a larger pie that will get us this. And remember, that could be a whole different kind of NBA-type league in basketball where you've got different divisions and you're playing across the country, and you add Gonzaga, you add UConn, right? Like that could be something. It could be as simple as that, or it could be just a basic, as we currently have, with just more teams. Or you have the top of the conference decide, hey, this is a bad deal still. We'd like to go to the SEC or the Big Ten, where they can cash in a much larger way with us, and we'll do so. So I think from the ACC perspective, it's coming from both sides. The other thing about the ACC that I think is notable, aside from like the discrepancy in revenue, is like Florida State's actually at a deficit right now.
Yep.
So Florida State has a boatload of revenue coming in, but they also have a boatload of expenses. So like, not all revenue is considered equal. And so even though Florida State is getting more money than anybody else in the ACC, they're still not at enough money that's sustainable in terms of their spending. So they got to get their spending on track, or they got to make more money. And I don't know if their spending's going to get on track.
And there's two.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I essentially what I took away from that is that in 2029 the league looks pretty much the way it does now, which means in college football, I think the general consensus is everybody's building towards that mark where all of the power conferences are going to probably sit tight for the next at least couple of years. We had that big wave, and usually conference realignment comes in waves, right? You have a massive explosion, and then a little bit of a cool down period, and then another massive explosion, and we're at the cool down right now, I would say, collectively.
Yeah, and it's almost like everybody's jockeying for position right now.
For the next bomb. Yep, totally. And Jim Williams, who's like a seven-time Emmy Award winner and tweets a lot about the industry and is still very connected behind the scenes. I thought that, his blog essentially, where he notes the type of financial trouble that Florida State is in and the mismanaging of their funds was really worth noting because it reframes a lot. We've been talking about, and publicly the narrative has been about TV markets and recruiting territories and these big brand names like a Florida State. And he's saying, like, the new question should be, can you pay your own bills? Because Florida State is in a position where they're not. And another team who's in the Big 12, just a stone's throw from Tallahassee, is UCF. And he notes UCF and even South Florida are the story that nobody's telling or telling loudly enough about the fact that their revenue versus their expenses, their operating surplus, is very different from Florida State. Where those schools, maybe they don't have the brand name, but they have the template compared to a Florida State. So that's a big brand that was eye-opening to me that, hey, Florida State closed fiscal year 2025 with $437 million in athletics-related debt. That's a $200 million increase in 1 year. Athletics account for 71% of the total Florida State institutional debt. So, their mismanagement on the athletics side, does that change the perception of Florida State in any way?
I don't know. Feels like it wouldn't because, not all debt is created equal. And, I failed out of business school. So, I mean, I didn't really, but I never went. So, and nor, so, this kind of stuff, the income to debt ratio, these are things that, man, if I knew them a little bit better, I probably wouldn't, be more like Florida State financially, where I spend as much as I bring in.
Right?
Like most people, I think, or at least certainly like myself. Not like Chad Ochocinco. I'll put it that way. But Florida State's brand is still pretty significant. So there's a reason why they command the kind of dollars they command. And I still think that that's going to trump everything. I think in certain conversations, I think your ability to balance the books as a school will be attractive to a conference. But I think there's probably 4 or 5 line items that are more important. Mm-hmm. I also think, there's the Jim Williams piece, which touches on that, basically argues that conferences are vetting expansion candidates on debt load and annual deficits and institutional subsidy dependency. I don't know that it's that deep right now. I think, the Big 12 and Brett Yormark maybe thinking about expansion. I don't think the Big 10 or the SEC are. Maybe down the road they will, and maybe they've entertained it, in terms of, what do we look like in 2030, but I think they're more sort of concerned with what's happening in the here and the now more than maybe the Big 12 is, because the Big 12 needs to think future to survive. And that's where I think the Redbird deal is so instrumental.
Totally.
And Brandon Marcello from CBS Sports released a piece that came out kind of basically documenting some of the highlights of it, many of the things we've heard about, but many that we haven't heard about. And, I think maybe the most important aspect that he wrote about here in this would be, about the ability for Redbird to come in and help make the intellectual property with the Big 12 more attractive, sort of like the CEO of Redbird did with the Yes Network.
Yep.
And that comparison to me stands out a ton, to where it's not just about okay, how do we cash in on our media rights deal in 2031? It's more what else is involved in that deal? What else is packaged together with it? It's too simplistic to be it's a 24/7 linear channel like SEC Network or like Big 12 Studios is. That's too analog. There's way other aspects of that that would be involved when it comes to the intellectual property stuff. And I think that is where Brett Yormark is really playing chess to checkers that everybody else is playing.
Completely agree. And the Big 12 fans, the fans of the 16 membered institutions, I've seen a lot of almost mocking this deal with all the Big 12 schools that are declining the one-time $30 million line of credit. The fans seem to think that's the number one most important piece of the Redbird capital deal. and it's not. It's like number 7. In fact, it's the, hey, we've got this awesome partnership. Oh, and by the way, if you need it, here's a $30 million line of credit. That's maybe the least most intriguing part of this whole thing and why it benefits the members of the Big 12. The Collegiate Athletic Solutions, CAS, a 3-legged approach between Redbird and the Big 12, commercial sponsorship arm.
And Weatherford Capital out of Florida, started by Drew Weatherford.
So a $12.5 million direct investment into new conference-level business. So essentially with the Yankees and the Yes Network, like the Big 12 can't go out and just start broadcasting games on their own. ESPN and Fox and TNT have football, then NBC and CBS are on top of that in basketball. So that part, that's what's different from the Yes Network. But what they can do is come up with these landmark commercial deals like we saw with PayPal, which is a $100 million deal that they can bring to the table for the next round of television rights negotiations and say it's not just our games, here's this layered on top of that and why you can cash in with us on this league.
The other thing, and these come from two of the main pieces at the top of Redbird Capital. One's from Jerry Cardinal, who's a founder of Redbird Capital and the chief investment officer. He said on the line of credit and the schools that are declining, and he said, quote, are they taking the money? That's not the point. The point is we're engaged in an iterative set of discussions at an individual and university level to educate them on how to have a relationship with capital.
Mm-hmm.
So they're offering the money up front, but what they're offering is far more than money. And quite frankly, I don't think any of the schools are going to take the money. They're going to take the advice and maybe down the road have individualized partnerships with Redbird that would include capital. The other one is from Robert Klein, who's the president of Redbird Capital. He said, quote, the onus is on the schools to innovate. If they embrace new business models that reflect today's economic framework, we can help them to unlock value, end quote. These are a lot of buzzwords. They're things like just sentences. But ultimately what these two quotes tell me is, like, if you're thinking about this as a transactional, you're thinking about it far too simplistically.
Yep.
There's a lot more here beneath the surface that every school can capitalize on. The reason that Redbird took a bad deal here, and not a bad deal in the real world, a bad deal in their world. Redbird and private equity only get amazing deals because they're giving money and getting a huge percentage of it back, or they're getting a large equity stake. Like they're only doing deals that are skewed heavily in their favor. They realize the reality of them taking a deal that's maybe even more favored in the Big 12's favor is because they see the growth potential within sports and college sports specifically. And here's the advantage the Big 12 has right now relative to everybody else. Nobody else is engaged in these discussions right now. The SEC and the Big 10, they've flirted with this, but by the time the Big 12 has really, truly capitalized on this, 2029, 2030, it'll be too late. The SEC and the Big 10 will be too far behind. These conversations will be 5 years down the road, and that's where Brett Yormark will really make his mark by having these conversations up front before anybody else's when they think it's too dangerous to get in to private capital and they already have all the money. So why would we do that? We're already winning. Why would we be doing that? The Big 12 is in a more advantageous position because they're going to be 5 years down the road before the Big 10 and the SEC have figured out what they've done.
Exactly. When you have the two guys at the top saying the $30 million line of credit does not matter. The Big 12 is not betting on a loan. The Big 12 is betting on a relationship. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Coming up next, Jacie Hoyt, the head women's basketball coach at Oklahoma State. They've got the number one transfer portal class in America, and we talk with Coach after this timeout. This is Big 12 Radio.
Wide open tight end. Bentley. Touchdown, Utah.
Under pressure, Dampier angles, caught. Did he get a foot down? He did. Touchdown. That's Dallin Bentley, the tight end. Two tight ends. Dampier.
Of today with and James, Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios with Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We're excited to welcome in the head women's basketball coach at Oklahoma State, Jacie Hoyt. Coach, how are you? How's the fam? How's the off season?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here and see you guys. I'm great. I am coming off of our shutdown that we get where the rules don't allow us to recruit or any of that stuff. So I'm feeling really refreshed. Got some really good time with my family, and Harlow got to spend a lot of time with her cousins and grandparents and all that good stuff. So I'm doing really great.
Yeah, I mean, how do you balance the incredible day-to-day grind of coaching at high-level D1 basketball with being a mother?
I don't know that balance is the right word because it's definitely not equal. But I think, for me, the greatest thing that I had growing up was a mother who figured it out, and kind of I got to watch her, marry the job with being a mom, and she just showed me the ropes on that. So, I'm really grateful to work at a place that lets me do that. And, Harlow travels with us everywhere. I think she's only missed like 2 games in her, 1.5 years of life. So it's great. It's amazing. I remember playing out in the NCAA tournament this year, and the players were all getting off the bus, and nerves were high, rightfully so, right? It's a tournament game, and Harlow was at the front giving everyone a high five as they got off the bus, and I could just kind of see the shoulders drop a little bit with our players, and I was like, this is what it's all about. I just have the best of both worlds right now. So I think you just got to figure out how to blend the two.
All right, Coach. When you sign the best transfer portal class in the country, we have to catch up. So break down, how did it happen, and what's this team look like this year?
Well, I can't say that I wanted it to happen the way that it did when this all started, because we just had one player on our roster that stayed. And shout out to Staley Hurd. She is as good of a player as you would want to build a roster around. And has just been so incredibly loyal to me and to Oklahoma State. And, to be able to build it around someone who's an all-conference player, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. And then it gave us a clean slate, to be honest. And, we had a lot of openings that we could look and say, okay, how do we want this to look? And what does it need to look like? How do we want to build this up? And my staff nailed it. Right. I mean, it was about 2.5 weeks of intense grinding of being on the phone and scheduling visits and just nonstop, recruiting, because there's so much involved now. You're not just talking to the recruit, of course, you're talking to their family and to the agents and all that stuff that we deal with now. But, I think a lot of it was really neat for me because several of the kids that we got, I had actually previously recruited at UMKC at my very first head coaching job. So, one of the first kids that we got, Ellie Brueggemann, for example, she's an elite shooter, was one of the best shooters in the portal. I had text messages with her from way back when she was a junior in high school that I had never deleted. And so we got to laugh, just about that relationship that we had back then. And then, just got some really big ones. Obviously, Audie staying in the Big 12. We're really excited about that because she's on our team now. But even for Audie, we had offered her the first time around out of high school. And so we laughed because we found on Twitter where she posted, her offer from us.
Wow.
So a lot of the signees that we got, they were actually from previous relationships that we were just able to, end in the right way, even though they didn't come play for me. And then we just had some kids, I have to talk about Liv McGill, who I'm so excited about, right? Like, arguably one of the most exciting players in the country. She just wanted to pave her own path and said, Coach, I want to be a trendsetter. I don't want to go to all these, schools and visits that I think everyone thinks I'm going to. I want to pave my own way. I want to do it different. And I believe in you and the vision that you guys have painted for me. So let's do this. There was just so many cool moments, like literally, I just go from like not having a roster to having a dream roster. And I mean, like the most emotional, awesome moments shared with each of those kids and each of those commitments. And I'm so excited for them to get here and get started now.
Yeah, well said. So, how do you bring this group together? This is a unique situation from the standpoint of it's a brand new roster with a lot of talent. So what's your approach to building that chemistry, something you've obviously been very good at your time as a coach?
Well, I think I have gotten good at it, and I'm saying that humbly. When I first got hired here, I inherited a roster that had 4 players on it. So I had to do the same thing. I had to go to the portal. And then the way that we were able to build it that year, which was an amazing year because we, had one of the biggest turnarounds in the country and go to the NCAA tournament in year 1. All those kids were grads. They were all grad transfers. So then I had to do it again. So it's not really that I chose to, have to be in these situations and go to the portal all the time. But I think the fact that I had to do it so early in my career, I've gotten to be pretty good at it and kind of understand how to navigate it. And then comes the work, right? When you get the team.
Yeah.
My case now, it's like, okay, now I've got to, blend all of this together, start working on the chemistry and all those things. But I think it really starts with the kids that you get. And the first thing I'll say is that all of our team came here for a very specific reason. They all want to be a part of what we have to offer. And I think that's a great start. You don't have a bunch of players with, egos and different backgrounds that are like trying to look out for themselves. It's very, very team oriented already, because they're very hungry to get to the tournament or go further in the tournament. And we're having those conversations already, and I think that when you have that vision, then it becomes very clear what you need to do to get there. And for us, a lot of that is going to be on the court, of course, just, getting them familiar with each other's game, but just spending time off the court and being really intentional about that. I think that's one thing that my staff and I have done a good job of, is just be really purposeful and intentional in building the relationships off the floor. Whether that's, just one-on-one relationships or putting them in team settings and having real, honest and raw conversations about things.
Talking with Oklahoma State women's basketball coach Jacie Hoyt here on Big 12 Radio and Big 12 Studios. Oklahoma State has one of the top portal classes in the country. Coach, you mentioned Audie Crooks, the Iowa State post player. Like when I think about Oklahoma State basketball, take and make a ton of threes, very up-tempo, high-scoring, and now you have maybe the most dominant post scorer in all of college basketball. So how do you blend those two things together, and how does she fit?
Well, I think that a player like Audie in the post, they dream about being surrounded by shooters, right? Because then you can't have the double teams and the specialized defenses and those things. And then on the flip side, shooters love having, a post presence that people can't, cheat off on them. So I think it's really actually not that hard. I think a lot of people, maybe question that with the style that we play, but I think it's the perfect match. And I think, for Audie, to be honest, she wants to grow. She wants to be in a system that is going to challenge her to, play at a faster pace, come out of the paint a little bit more, because she does want to play at the next level. And she's been very, very clear about that. And I'm really grateful that she's entrusted us to help her get there. But I think that she was looking for a little bit of a different style, be involved a little bit more in ball screens, which we do a ton of. That's kind of our bread and butter in the half court. So I think that there's a lot of things that just make it a perfect match for both her and our guards. We're not going to change the way that we play fast and shoot threes. There's no changing that. And Audie's excited to grow and be in a new system.
Talking with Jacie Hoyt here, who's entering year 5 at Oklahoma State, has made the tournament 3 out of 4 years, and she mentioned the turnaround between a 9-20 season, 3-15 in the Big 12, to 21-12 and 10-8. Just a remarkable turnaround year over year. And look, this past year you got to the second round, but first round exits in the previous 2. How do you get over the hump? How do you get to that second weekend? And is this the type of roster talent that you need to get to that second weekend?
I believe that it is. I think that it really does just boil down to talent. There's definitely a ceiling when you get to that tournament and you're playing against the best of the best. It just is what it is. You've got to have the talent. You have to have the players who can get you over the hump. And I believe that we've done that. I think really, depth is really important. I think that the best teams, they have a bench that they can go to playing later in the season. And, I know we're talking about the Audis and the Livs of the world, but my goodness, we have so many incredible pieces around them. And the depth is by far the most that I've ever had in my career. So I really believe that that's going to translate into us playing deeper into March.
Awesome stuff. Coach, we will see you at spring meetings here in a few weeks. We appreciate your time. Congrats on all the off-season success, and we'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Jacie Hoyt, Oklahoma State women's basketball coach, joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Coming up next, we sit down with Brent Schroedenboer. Brent Schroedenboer.
Maybe.
From USA Today.
Maybe it's Boyer. Well, I guess we'll find out.
He's all over the Big 12 private capital deal with Redbird, so details on that around the corner. He's Ari. I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio.
Arizona getting exotic. It's lofted by Sorsby, and it's picked off. Dalton Johnson with the second takeaway for Arizona.
That was going to remain on the sideline today. That one looks laminated. Look out here. Howland flung for a huge loss. We know he can spin it, but so do Dalton Johnson and the Cats.
Tonight getting his first career carries. Ball is loose. A lucky bounce for Botmeyer. Can he make the most of it? And that ball down the field is taken away for the second time tonight. Gotta be a good punt. Salgado Medina does get it away. And this will be touched by Kansas State.
And he goes right through his hands. And Johnson on the recovery. Johnny on the spot.
Lyman being able to swing it that well. Look at this second level blitz, and the Cats get hands on it again. Dalton Johnson part of that wave. Back-to-back pass breakups.
Out of the shotgun. Jailbreak pressure. It's picked off. And it will be a pick 6 for Dalton Johnson. Wow, they got him at the 5. That was great defensive work. Wow, I thought no way they're going to catch up.
3rd and 22. Couple guys drop out. Sorsby in trouble. Gets it away complete. And he's wrestled out of bounds. Manny Covey.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, powered by Modelo. And Brent Scrotenbohr is a reporter for USA Today Sports, has also covered business topics for USA Today Money. So he's the perfect guest to talk about this Redbird deal. Hey, Brent, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. How are you?
So trying to break all this down, and we will lean on your expertise. I guess first, why have at least 13 of the 16 schools in the Big 12 declined to ultimately take the $30 million credit?
The simple answer is they don't really need it, at least not yet. It's money that isn't free. It's not cheap money. The interest rate is near 10%. And these are schools that, while they do need money, I don't know how badly they need it where they need to pay it at that rate. A lot of these schools have been able to pay bills and pay their deficits and have their deficits covered by their schools whenever they fall short. Colorado is one example. They're looking at a $27 million deficit. The school has been willing to help cover these kinds of shortfalls in the past, just like other schools do. So we're talking about private capital that comes with strings attached, that comes with collateral, that comes with the interest rate I mentioned. And so, it's how I would look at it is it's a $30 million credit card. Credit cards aren't cheap. They can get you into trouble. You can get into debt fast with them, but it's nice to have sitting around as long as you're not using it yet and don't need to use it until you don't use it until you need to.
Yeah. I'm curious for kind of your general thought on this deal with the Big 12 and Redbird Capital, especially from the private equity lens. It feels to me like a much better deal, better maybe in quotes here, than a lot of other deals that a Redbird Capital or private equity would be doing because of, I guess, the growth or the potential growth within revenues in sports. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think one point about it too to make is I don't think the Big 12 expected many teams to take this. So It's not really a surprise that all these teams have turned it down so far. They can change their mind. It's a nice tool to have in the toolbox, but this isn't really a surprise that this many teams said we don't want it yet. But to your question, the bigger picture is when you're in business with private equity companies, these are companies that own a lot of assets and have a lot of money, and they have a lot of companies in their portfolio, like Redbird, for example, owns a stake in Paramount Global, which owns CBS and is soon to own TNT. It's nice to have big business partners in media rights and in sports to help you get deals, sponsorship deals, and maybe can help you with a media rights deal in the future. So it's really about, this deal was a lot more than this line of credit for the schools. That the line of credit for the schools is something that us in the news media focused on initially, just because it was interesting to find out who might want that money or need it. That's a valid news question to ask, but I think we need to remember that it's a lot more than that. Not to mention, we haven't even talked about it, 12.5 million in infusion of cash or capital for the Big 12 league office, who wants to use that money to grow revenues for the league. So it's just important to keep that in mind. It's a bigger deal than the line of credit.
Very much so, and that's very well said. And when you write that this deal has big potential, with your background, what potential could that be, just in your opinion?
That's kind of the big question, is people want to know is what does the Big 12 league office want to do with the $12.5 million in investment money that it's getting? What is it going to do with that money to grow revenues? Because the Big 12 is challenged, like other leagues that aren't the Big 10 or the SEC. There's a huge revenue gap right now in college football, college sports, where the Big 10 and the SEC, they've just reported over $1 billion in revenue, and the Big 12 and other leagues are challenged to even come up with half that revenue. So what does the Big 12 do? It tries to do deals like this. It tries to come up with ways to grow money, and this is a step in that process. It's still a big gap to try to bridge, but I think we all want to know is that what is the Big 12's plan for that money? I mean, there's a lot of potential there. They haven't really answered that question of what exactly they're going to do with it. I mean, maybe they don't know yet, maybe they don't want to say yet, but it's nice to have, but that's the challenge the Big 12 is facing.
Yeah, and having extremely limited business background, I could barely add and subtract. The Redbird deal, Brent, like there's the cash side, which you've touched on, but then there's the other two for the Big 12 perspective. And, to me, those elements are really big and maybe at the forefront of this entire conversation because the Big 12 needs not only to make up the revenue discrepancy between the big, bad SEC and Big 10, they need to do it in ways that the Big 10 and the SEC won't touch because as soon as the Big 10 and the SEC also take on those revenue opportunities, that gap widens. And this might be one of them. I'm just kind of curious for your perspective on it, where right now it feels sort of like the Big Ten and the SEC think, well, we're in this position. We don't need to take this kind of money or have this kind of investment. And by the time they realize they might, the Big 12 might be so far down the road with it that they're way ahead of the game. Kind of just curious again for your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like the Big Ten also is looking at a private equity style deal, and it recently put on hold. So, considering how much money the Big Ten has brought in revenue recently, like close to 1.5 billion, it was interesting to see that they also thought they needed more money too. They were looking at a private equity deal with the University of California pension system, and it was a little controversial because it was a private equity deal as opposed to a private capital deal. Private equity, you're talking about an ownership stake in the operation, where the Big 12, that's not what this is with Redbird and Weatherford. It's a private capital deal. It's not an ownership stake in the league or anything like that. But to your point about, the gap and trying to catch up, I mean, the bottom line is everybody can't get enough money. Okay, like the costs are just going up. And so like even the Big Ten with all the money it has and the SEC with all the money it has and how much more money they have than the other leagues like the Big 12 and the ACC is like even the ACC, even the SEC and the Big Ten, they can't get enough money, right? The cost of labor has gone up, for lack of a better word.
Right.
The NFL money, the revenue sharing, the coaches' pay is never going down. It's always going up. And certainly the market for players is just getting started, after just starting last year and being legalized last year as far as revenue sharing, that's just going to go up. So these costs are going up, and so you need more money to pay for them, so nobody can get enough money. So like the Big Ten is always going to pursue more money. They're pursuing deals like this too. So it's like it's really challenging if you're not the Big Ten and the SEC. You got to try everything, but you got to keep in mind that the other leagues are trying for kind of the same things you are. So it's really tough, really challenging environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Brent Scrotenbohr is an investigative reporter, sports reporter for USA Today. Also has background in covering business for USA Today. So, Brent, what would you put as like the number one like part of this deal? Is it the $12.5 million capital infusion? Is it just the fact that Redbird has an ownership stake in Paramount? Like, what do you think is the most important part of it?
I would say, yeah, the network aspect could be more important than the money. Just to have these as business partners opens some doors going forward. You can't really put a price tag on that, right? You can put a price tag on the $12.5 million infusion for the Big 12. And another part of this deal is sponsorship opportunities. That's already led to a big sponsorship with the Big 12 with PayPal. That is just an example of this partnership coming to fruition and leading to revenue for the league. So you can't really put a price on networking and opening doors and what that could mean for the future. And because it's sort of a priceless thing, as opposed to an asset you can put a dollar figure on, I think that is probably the most important part of this deal.
I also really want to make sure that the audience understands you're not a sports reporter.
I actually am. I came up that way. I've been doing this 30 years. I came up as like a covering high school games.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes, but branched out into other things. I saw an opportunity. I pursue stories where I can get them, and I've covered beats. Like I've covered a lot of Colorado football as a beat the last few years with Coach Prime, but I also cover like legal stories and business stories too, because they're interesting, and college sports is a big business. Sports is a big business.
No, and the reason I mentioned that is just because, like, there's a level of intelligence and experience on your side that maybe is elusive for us, Neanderthals in the sports world. So I just think your perspective on this is really interesting from the standpoint of, you have covered sports, but like you're more business and law reporting, which is, to me, the most interesting part about this whole dynamic. Is it almost feels like I need an MBA and a law degree to cover this now.
Yeah, it's true. It has helped me to know a lot of the legal side and the business side, especially in college sports now, where everything is about the courts, everything is about money.
Everything.
And so, yeah. So the more you can learn about that, if you're in the news media business, the better you're going to be to understand this, is how I look at it.
Good stuff. Brent, last thing for me, like, what can you share in terms of what this group did with the Yankees and the Yes Network? I know that's a lot different than kind of this in terms of what the media landscape looks like now compared to back then in like the early 2000s, but how does that play into this whole thing?
I'm not that well versed in that aspect of it, but I would sort of equate it to that is sort of in the same realm of opening doors and being in the same network and having business partners that can open doors to things that you otherwise wouldn't if you didn't know them before and hadn't done business with them before, to be able to get your foot in the door or get you in the room as part of a negotiation or an introduction that could lead to something bigger is an example of that. It's like this Redbird if you look at their portfolio, it's got all kinds of different companies. I mentioned Paramount. There are other ones. Weatherford, the other one too. I mean, they have all kinds of companies in their portfolio. One of them is the IMG Academy in Florida, which is like a hotbed for recruiting every year. I don't know how that would translate into anything for the league or the league members, but I know certainly the schools in the Big 12 are recruited at the IMG Academy. So I mean, you can kind of imagine like an NIL deal or something there that could, maybe make things easier recruiting wise or NIL wise. So the sky's the limit, really, when you're talking about having business partners with these kinds of assets and that kind of money, where they can get you in the room with different people that you maybe otherwise wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really exciting stuff. Brent, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Great insight, easy to break down. And again, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Brent Scrotenbohr, the investigative reporter for USA Today and USA Today Sports, joining us here on Big 12 today. And again, kind of highlighted the fact that like the $30 million line of credit, that's the side piece. Everything else, that's the meat and potatoes, the other stuff of this deal.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to laugh at the fact that, to cover college sports now, you need a law degree and a master's, maybe even a PhD in business. But I guess it's good that the decision makers at the top do. I mean, I don't know that your mark literally has one, but it feels like the Big 12's in good hands with the right, business guy in charge. Business guy, that's how much I know about business. He's just the right business guy. But, in all seriousness, it's really hard to look at this stuff and make it interesting for sports radio. This is not exactly the most conducive sports talk radio stuff, but it at the same time is very interesting because the entire fate of the conference and all of our favorite schools basically hinges on these decisions. Yep. And so I think if you think of it from the perspective of if you wake up and you read an article that says, hey, all these other conferences are passing out way more money than the Big 12. Big 12's in trouble. Number one, you woke up and weren't paying attention for years. We've been talking about this. But number two, the question isn't, all right, retroactive, because we know this is from fiscal year 2025, right? We know the SEC and the Big Ten are passing out way more money than the Big 12 is. We knew that. This shouldn't be a surprise to us. Maybe the specific numbers are a surprise, but what we should be focused on now is what is your mark at the Big 12 doing right now that puts the Big 12 in position to get closer to that. And look, they can chip away, but we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars here.
Right.
Chipping away doesn't work. So you need an elephant, and I think that's what Redbird is potentially. Right? That's not to say it's without it's without flaw. Or there's not a gamble involved here. Like there's definitely risks involved, as there is with anything. But with high risks come the potential for high reward.
Totally. Yeah. Well said. Really good stuff from Brent Scroton-Bohr from USA Today. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. He's Ari. I'm James, and this is Big 12 Radio.
Up to the field side here, and he's home again. Changing up the look. The result is the same for David Bailey.
56% on the year on conversions. Jackson's in trouble and down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
More on 3rd and 8. Pressure, and they get to him. He is sacked by the best in the biz, David Bailey. 14 and a half sacks now on the season.
On this possession, but a huge smack in the backfield again. It's David Bailey walloping Jamarian Burnett.
Work out of empty here. 3rd down and 9. Kansas State. Oh, goodness. Look out. David Bailey, the sack leader in the nation, gets home again.
Cam Pickett is much healthier now and running better. You see it there.
Oh, good night. David Bailey in a heartbeat. He graduated from Stanford in under 4 years, and he runs like this.
One final time here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Don't miss our Big 12 Power Hour. Spring football highlighting the Utah Utes post-spring. A full breakdown coming up at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time. And in that hour, you'll also hear our interview of the day, which is each and every day. And today, it's Jacie Hoyt, the women's basketball coach at Oklahoma State. They've got the number 1 and the number 6 ranked player in the transfer portal, a guard from Florida, and then Audie Crooks from Iowa State, who averaged 25 points per game this past season. They're doing construction just outside of our front area, right over there in the hallway. It's 9:45 Central. It's an appropriate time to be doing construction.
Yes.
What is the cutoff on, say, a Saturday morning? Where does the window start as appropriate time to be doing construction?
I mean, what's appropriate and what the reality is are two completely different things.
Okay, give me both.
I mean, I would say for Saturday, like 9 a.m.
Okay.
But that's just not how it works.
Would you say like 8 a.m.?
Well, look, I mean, you know, as somebody that lives in a neighborhood where at times I've heard construction going at all hours, certainly in the morning, you know, you get it. It's hot. So the earlier you get out there, the more you limit your time in the 100-degree humidity oven situation that we have here. So it sucks when you're, you know, awakened by construction at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, but it happens. Do I like it? No. Can I do anything about it? No.
They're tearing down a house in our neighborhood, just 2 doors down from us. It's very loud. You can't quietly tear down a pre-existing home. 7 a.m. Saturday morning, they're out there. I was not happy about it.
So, by the way, great intro to the neighborhood, you know? Like, hey, here's the new neighbors. They're building a ridiculous monstrosity in your neighborhood, and it starts with this just beating drum of construction to tear down a house. I don't. Is this like a Dallas thing? The amount of like people that like will just start over and build new houses is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Same.
Like, you know, in Chicago where I grew up, I know a lot of people that will remodel their house, but like just
from the inside.
Yeah, to knock it down and start over, it feels to me like a complete Dallas phenomenon. And you know, like where we live, it happens, but you know, in East Dallas, like Lake Highlands, that area. It's insane. You will see like $2 million mansions next to like 1,500 square foot shacks. And it's like that shack has an original owner and that is going to maintain the shackness of it until that person dies. But it's just hilarious. You have like a $2 million house mansion, shack, $2 million mansion. It's crazy. I mean, you're spending, it's, you know, let's just call it anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million on the house. Then you're knocking the house down and you're building a $2 million house.
Bro, you are describing our neighborhood. Now, not quite shack level, but there are a lot of 1,500 to 2,000 square foot ranch style homes. And then about every 4th or 5th house, there's just this ginormous mega mansion.
Yeah. I think it's worse in Lake Highlands, but yeah, our area where we live is becoming more and more like it.
It's so foreign to me. I've never seen anything like it.
No, never.
And then I thought, is there something I'm missing? Like, is this a shortcut? Is this the way? Is this better than remodeling your home? Is to just tear the whole thing down and build from scratch? It's better, but it's not cheaper, not even close.
Yeah, no, it's not the most cost-effective way.
I thought maybe it was.
No.
I thought interest rates, like long-term, longevity, if you're going to live there for 2 decades.
No.
None of that.
No. No. Even remodeling, like certain areas of the house, sure, but like, you know, when you're building a custom house, you're remodeling a house, you're doing it to what you want, which you should, but like then somebody else is going to come in and be like, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, and they're going to buy the house and pay whatever they think is market value for it, and then do the same thing. I mean, yeah, I don't know if like people have too much money or what, but it's not cost effective.
Be a nice problem to have. There are more home sellers than there are home buyers right now than ever before. It just peaked in the United States, like more so than 2008, more so than 2000. So just something to keep tabs on. I'm not at all concerned about that.
Well, I mean, look, far be it from me I'm not like a housing expert here. We've now done like law, business. Now we've moved into the housing sector.
Checking
here,
all
so
the
why
boxes
not? Yeah,
today.
why not?
All things that we're very seasoned in.
But I am able to count. I can do that.
Good at that.
And like a 3% interest rate is lower than a 6% interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
That is something I know is a fact.
About half.
Yeah. That's a genius assumption right there, observation right there. So interest rates are where? I don't know, less than 7, more than 6. There was a 0.5 to 10 years ago where the interest rates were 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people aren't trying to move because of interest rates. Now, that will change over time. Real estate is still probably a good investment. I would advise, for it. But, yeah, I mean, knocking down a house, rebuilding. But, that, by the way, that problem that you have there ain't going away anytime soon.
No, it's
like,
not.
it's 7 a.m. to start to start imploding the house. It's like explode, implode, or whatever. Removing the house?
Yeah.
Demo. Thank you. No, you demo for a remodel. Okay, you don't. That's more than a demo.
Okay.
But like, you ain't seen nothing yet, bro. Just wait for the 7. Like, just think about the construction of the house then.
Yeah, that's not going to be great either.
No,
and it's only getting hotter, which means they'll probably start earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, let's beat the sun today, 5 a.m. on a Saturday.
Those neighbors are going to be just loved, and with the money they have, I'm sure they don't care.
Man,
like we have a house that's not close enough to where the construction really bothered us, but close enough that it's it's pretty close. Super nice people. Like if they moved in and were like stuck up and snobby, it'd be like a disaster.
Yeah,
for us, not for them. They don't care. They live in the house. They don't have to deal with the neighbors.
Yeah. I've heard the buyers are great, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
You're starting off with the wrong foot.
I don't like how great I'm hearing that they are.
Who says they're great?
Everybody that's met them. I don't know. We've got a guy in the neighborhood that knows everything about everybody in every house, and I just lean on him.
Something's got to be wrong with that guy.
He's an older fella.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Heart of gold. Great guy, Mr. Ross.
Sweetheart.
He's outstanding. All right, so I asked you guys yesterday, how do you catch a common cold? Taman gave a pretty detailed answer.
Yeah, you are around somebody who has the virus.
Somebody has the virus.
Germs.
Germs.
Should be a more simplistic way to put it.
The question isn't, though, how does a person catch a common cold? It's how do you catch a common cold? Would you like to revise your answer?
No.
You personally?
I'm around people who had a cold.
Okay. People who had a cold.
Yeah.
All right. What's your answer?
I mean, I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not Superman. What do you like? What's the difference between people and me? I catch a cold through germs.
Okay, through germs.
Like most other people.
Okay. So.
Or all other people. All other people.
All right. So here's the context. The question is used. I don't know if you know this. We pod on this show, right? So this came up, something I was listening to. How do you catch a cold? That's a question that surfaces when they're trying to evaluate juries and jury selection in a lot of high-profile cases, because how you answer that question, you will default to either external blame. It's everybody else's fault, kids, they got germs, this person, that person, or you'll take personal responsibility and say, yeah, I was on a crowded subway and I didn't wash my hands after, or I was at the gym and I didn't bring hand sanitizer, or whatever it is. And so like the example they used, there was this case that was this giant company, and a woman was suing them because she had slipped on a green bean. And so that was the question that they used to identify, like that, other questions too, but that was number one, to identify would the jury member see themselves as a victim, like the woman who slipped on a green bean, or would they take more personal responsibility for how they catch a common cold? And those people would be more likely, and it's like a 95% hit rate, to side with the big, larger company that, hey, this is how we do things. It's not our fault you slipped on a green bean in our store. Watch where you're going.
So what does my answer mean?
I thought both of your answers leaned towards external blame. There's no right or wrong. Definitely T-Chains.
Definitely, I was gonna say definitely.
Damon yesterday
Mine
leaned
is
into. You were a little bit more neutral on the
germs.
fence. I'm not sure you understood the question. Just a one-word answer, germs. I don't know that that's going to cut it.
How would the
probably
defense?
They might ask you to elaborate.
How would the defense attorney? Well, I don't know. I'm around people that have. Oh no!
That's it. That's it. Like a victim-oriented answer. Well, somebody sneezed on me. I touched this surface that a bunch of people had their dirty hands on. Whereas the responsible-oriented answer would be, like I said, I didn't wash my hands, didn't get enough sleep, whatever the case may be. But I just thought that was fascinating that such a simple question could tell me everything I need to know about you, Taman Turner.
Well, and let me reiterate something. You're trying not to be on that jury.
So maybe there's a little reverse psychology that we're working with.
Yeah, like you don't want. Who wants to be on a jury like that?
Well, I don't think they're picking you.
Clearly not.
Germs. That's my answer.
And I'm like, whether I'm trying to or not, try to come up with the most unattractive jury answer here.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, how do you answer questions in a job interview? Like, you want to get the job, so you're going to try to answer it the right way. In the case of jury duty, like, yeah, how do I answer it to get me out of this?
Polar opposite.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever been on jury duty?
No.
Me neither.
Well, you're going to get it soon.
Taman, have you?
I have.
What was the case?
It was a case about a car accident and who was at fault.
Boring.
It was, but it was interesting, though. It was a 4-day trial. We ruled in the defendant. We felt bad for the the defendant because he had some pretty significant injuries, but it wasn't his fault.
Well, clearly, I mean, based off the answer that you had for how do you catch a common cold, I'm not surprised at all that's who you sided with. You just proved my point.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. We felt bad for him.
Yeah.
It wasn't his fault.
Yep. Bro, you were targeted. They wanted you on that jury. Nicely done.
There we go.
And it hit. There you go.
That's amazing.
All right, we've got Jacie Hoyt, the women's basketball coach at Oklahoma State, is our interview of the day. Our Big 12 Power Hour talking Utah Utes football starts at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling for T-Chains on the board. On the audio side for our video producer, Anthony Smith, behind the camera. Back tomorrow. These two clowns will be with you. I'll be out the next couple of days, so join them at 8 Eastern, 7 Central here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. But for now, we're out.
Peace.